sabrinasalvati.
Welcome to Sabby Sab Podcast. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. That was protesters right outside of the fundraising event for Joe Biden in New York City. He's having a fundraising event at Radio City Music Hall today with Barack Obama and Bill Clinton. I'm going to get into that story a little bit later, but welcome to the stream, guys. Happy Thursday. I hope you had a good day yesterday. I want to give a shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And for those of you who are new and may not know, Sabby Sabs Podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show. And you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. Let me clear my throat for a second. Let me clear my throat. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Oh! I hope you don't mind. What's up, guys? We have a lot to discuss tonight. I want to start out by giving shout out to people in the chat. What's up, fam? Let me scroll up to the top here. Let's go ahead and do the damn thing. Shout out to Nas M says, if that's what you call grilled. I know, I guess grilled for Piers Morgan. We'll get into that discussion tonight as well. Shout out to Stan says, grills had my hopes up. Well done, please. Shout out to DC says, Kennedy is pro-biz. Get back to work with pay worthwhile. What is up, CBC voter? Put you in here. Happy Thursday, Sabby Sabs. Shout out to Kenman says, love you, Sabby. Love you too, and welcome. Shout out to I Know Myself. I'm glad you do. We shouldn't get distracted. This conflict with Gaza is really about setting up an alternative to the Suez Canal, a Zionist goal for a long time now. Yes, I believe someone talked about, I can't remember if it was Richie Medhurst who talked about that. I think it was him who brought this up before. Shout out to Randy says, good evening to all that showed up early, Sabby comrades. Shout out to Miguel says, peace. Greetings, Lawrence says, there's no peace of mind or place you'll see like riding on Lakeshore Drive. Shout out to Mark Pugsley, who doesn't say anything, but what's up, Mark? Shout out to New York Varsity says, shooby-dooby-doo, let's go. Thank you for the super chat. I Know Myself. Gaza is about strategic alternative to Suez Canal. Interesting. Greetings, Hannah G says, what Obama do now? We'll get into that. Shout out to Juliet says, say it loud, say it clear. Obama, you're not welcome here. I was there in the rain. So Juliet was actually there at the protest outside of Radio City Music Hall. Can't wait to cover that story. Shout out to DJ says, RBN and the Sabby train just keeps chugging. Woo, woo. That's right. Chugga, 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 chugga. What's going on? Red 6 says, hello, Sabby. Shout out to ACAB says, hello, everyone. Greetings, layer of snark. I'm finally here early. I'm finally early to one of these. Welcome. What's going on? Gamer says hello. Shout out to Mark here. Okay, here's your statement. Sabby, I finally have the means to be a supporter. I've been waiting a long time for this. You all at RBN are a voice in the wilderness. Oh, thank you so much, Mark. Thank you. Appreciate that. What's up? Marcus says, I can see walk to this. I believe Marcus is talking about the beat at the beginning of the show, the intro. Yeah, it has like a West Coast Dre beat to it. You know, I don't know, that kind of style. What's going on? James sends love. Shout out to Casey sends solidarity and fire. Greetings, New Sheep says hi, everyone. Shout out to Dan says, isn't pro to state pro-colonialism? Oh, Dan, you get it. I agree, Dan. I agree. I love it. I love it. Everybody's waking up. Shout out to All One Same says, I like the piano doobie doobie doo. Thank you. Greetings, Peace Dove says, Retro Gamer. And Miguel saying hello to those peeps. Shout out to Corey helping me out here with things in the background, says Sabby Thursday. Let's go. And shout out to Lou says evening comrades. Greetings, Dwayne says, howdy, y'all. Howdy, Dwayne. Let's get into it, folks. I want to start off by giving a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. You're out here keeping things lit, literally. All the lights around me, you're keeping it lit. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories: Ultimate, Sabinators, Sabsters. There's also Sabbies, and of course, members. All of their names are listed here, and you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. Thank you guys so much. Really do appreciate it. And I believe I shouted out new Sabby patrons last stream. So I'll edit that and keep it moving. Gotta keep it moving. All right. What are we talking about tonight, ladies and gentlemen? Let's go ahead and share that thumbnail. One of these days, I'm going to come up with a different, format for my thumbnail for my live streams. I just haven't figured it out yet. I still need squares. I like the squares. All right. Tonight we are discussing Piers Morgan grills Ben Shapiro. I guess grilling for Piers Morgan. I was actually surprised he continued to push this issue. We're going to get into that discussion in reference to the war in Gaza, and also Piers Morgan questioning Ben Shapiro about the firing of Candace Owens. That is very interesting, especially considering I do have new leaked information about that for tonight. We're also going to discuss RFK Jr. confirms his VP, and this is causing a lot of buzz within the community among his supporters. Some people are happy about it. Some people are not happy about it. We're going to get into all of that and how this could affect Trump and Biden. We're also going to discuss Obama and Bill Clinton event. That was actually the protesters that you saw at the very beginning of the stream. They were protesting that event. So we're going to get into that. They have pulled out the old school war criminals to come back and help Joe Biden. It's a hot mess. And we have some good news tonight. Ice Cube doing the damn thing. So we're going to give a shout out about Ice Cube's recent announcement, which is actually really huge. There are some critics, of course, that are trying to find a way to put it down. But I actually think this is good news. And I think we should be giving him a round of applause for that. Ravina says, do it, Ice Cube. Yeah, man. Yeah, son. All right. So we're actually going to go ahead and get started with that announcement from Ice Cube. So for those who don't know, Ice Cube isn't just a rapper. He isn't just an actor. He isn't just a businessman. Ice Cube also started this alternative basketball league called the Big Three. This is like an alternative to the NBA. I actually think the format is better because it's less games, less weeks, and the Big Three takes place during the NBA offseason. So he doesn't have to worry about competing with them in reference for airtime. But he's had a lot of difficulties. He's had difficulties from the DOJ in reference to the Big Three. I know if you can believe it or not, but the Department of Justice actually was trying to push against Ice Cube for having this league. He also has had pushback and suppression from mainstream media networks as well that did not want to feature Big Three games because they have a contract with the NBA. And it has gotten to the point now that the Big Three has become so popular that I guess the NBA kind of sees them as competition. So it is what it is. And I've always said before, if you can't beat them, instead of joining them, which people usually say, start your own damn thing. And so that's what he did. But that's not the announcement. Ice Cube decided to make an offer to a woman for the Big Three, an offer of $5 million. People are losing it on social media. I don't even think this was supposed to be announced. As soon as it was, we'll show Ice Cube's tweet, which basically explains this was not supposed to get out yet, but it's out and it's in the open. He was recently just on ESPN on the Pat McAfee show, talking about this as well. The fact that he's offering $5 million to a woman to join the big three. This is freaking huge, because you have to understand, basketball players in the WNBA don't receive that type of salary, okay? They're not offered millions. We'll get into that, but he's offering this to Caitlin Clark. Let's get into this.
The biggest star left in March Madness has a $5 million offer on the table. And I mean March Madness, men's or women's tournament, that biggest star is Caitlin Clark, and she has a $5 million offer on the table to play in Ice Cube's Big Three basketball league. Now, if you don't know the Big Three, his league is basically made up of like retired NBA players. The games are 3-on-3. The floor is spaced out. It's a low-paced game. Honestly, she would dominate these. And even if she were to take the deal, she could still play in the WNBA afterwards. So it would almost just be a little summer side quest to go get a bag. The Big Three would like it because I'm sure their ratings would soar. Now, it's probably not going to happen, but if it were to happen, how do you think Caitlin Clark would do in that league? The biggest star left in March Madness has a $5 million offer on the table. And I mean March.
Let's pause here for just a second. And I want to get to the statement from Ice Cube. First of all, let me explain to you who Caitlin Clark is, because there's already some naysayers. Some people are not happy about this. We'll get into that. Caitlin Clark, arguably at this point in time, is probably the best player in women's collegiate basketball today. She is the best of the best. And there's just no denying that. I'm just keeping it real. The stats do not lie. She's actually participating in March Madness right now, but she's still in college, and he is offering this to her. She has not accepted yet, but he is extending that offer. So that information actually was not supposed to get out. And that is revealed here from Ice Cube. He said, we intended the offer to remain private while Caitlin Clark plays for the championship. But I won't deny what's now already out there. Big Three made a historic offer to Caitlin Clark. Why wouldn't we? Caitlin is a generational athlete who can achieve tremendous success in the Big Three. So you'll see here, it was actually TMZ who leaked that. I told you TMZ is everywhere, okay? He goes on to say, the skeptics laughed when we made Nancy Lieberman the first female coach of a men's pro team, and she won the championship in her first year. Then Lisa Leslie won it all in year 2. With our offer, Caitlin Clark can make history and break down even more barriers for women athletes. American women athletes shouldn't be forced to spend their off seasons playing in often dismal and dubious foreign countries just to make ends meet. Now, I don't know if I would have called those countries dismal and dubious. I don't know if I would have taken it there, Ice Cube. But I get the point that he's making. And he ends with this, and they should have more than just one professional option in the United States at a time when American pro sports leagues are being infiltrated by autocratic, anti-women regimes such as Qatar. Our path-breaking offer to Caitlin Clark demonstrates that Big Three now offers another choice for athletes. So some people are hating on this because they're saying, out of all the people, why did you pick her? Why didn't you offer this to someone else? And like I said before, she is the best player right now that's out there in collegiate basketball and women's collegiate basketball. I'm just going to keep it real to you guys. Ain't no shame in my game. I played basketball. I'm just going to be honest with you about that. So there's that. And then some people are also upset because they feel like this is going to take away from the WNBA. That's actually not the case. Caitlin can still play in the WNBA if she decides. Again, these seasons happen at different times. The Big Three, it's 8 weeks, 10 weeks if you make it to the playoffs. So she can still actually do both. Now, speaking of the WNBA, because I want to show you the difference in reference to salary here. I want to show you who is the highest paid WNBA player in 2024. So I want to show you just how much they make and just how much has been offered to Caitlyn. So this is Sabrina. Sabrina plays for, not me. Not me. Sabrina is the highest paid WNBA player in 2024. Listen to this, folks. The world of women's professional basketball has seen a significant rise in recognition and compensation of its athletes, with several notable players securing lucrative contracts. Let's see this contract. So Sabrina, I think it's Onoscu, her contract and earnings. Sabrina, a prominent figure in women's basketball, has clinched the title of the highest paid WNBA player in 2024. Her 2-year contract, 2 years, is valued at an impressive $410,000. So the highest paid woman in the WNBA, the highest paid player, is making over $400,000. That's it. That's it. And if you'll notice here, it says with an annual salary of $205,000. So she's getting $205,000 each year. It's a 2-year contract over $410,000. So do you see why Ice Cube offering Caitlin Clark $5 million is such a big deal? These women don't get this type of offer in the WNBA. They just don't. So I don't understand why people are mad, but people are mad. Oh, people coming all out of the woodwork. Lexi Brown. WNBA player Lexi Brown has a few words for Ice Cube after he offered college basketball star Caitlin Clark $5 million to play in his Big 3 league as a side job when she goes to the WNBA. So this is the statement here from Lexi Brown. She said, no other women's basketball player has come to mind in the last 7 years. So I guess Lexi is basically saying herself. Lexi is like, you didn't think about me in the past 7 years. Like, it's just weird. Like, Lexi, stop. Just stop. Stop. Don't go there. Congratulate. Don't hate. I can't believe this is happening, right? So she was actually on Gilbert Arenas' show talking about this. Yeah, she's not too happy about it. So let me dive in here. Lexi is in some feelings.
If you open the article and you see what he said was his reasoning, he wanted to provide more opportunities for WNBA players and provide opportunities to not go overseas. So you offered the contract to a player who's not yet even in the WNBA. Big 3 does not happen during overseas season. So that doesn't make sense.
That's true.
And then you pretty much offended all of the European countries that open their doors to us, give us a lot of money, a lot of love, and a lot of experience by.
Yeah. So I will say again, like I said earlier, I don't agree with the comment that he made about the foreign countries, calling them dismal and dubious. I don't agree with that.
Calling them dismal and dubious. And there are some very beautiful countries that we have the opportunity to go play in. So, I mean, if you're going to say that it's for that, then stand on that. But I don't think I think he's trying to make a business decision, which he's a businessman. That makes sense. But to mask it in this, I want to uplift and support WNBA players and women athletes is kind of a cop-out, I think. And I don't think it really makes any sense.
So Lexi is not happy about it. Look, I'm just going to say this. I think it's great that those other countries have given you opportunities over the years, but the reality is they weren't paying you what you were worth. I'm just going to keep it real. He is offering $5 million to this woman. Like, to me, it's just, I don't understand the hate over this. Do you want to continue having players go into the WNBA and making less than what they should? I just told you what the highest paid player in the WNBA is making right now, over $400,000. That's nothing. That's nothing compared to what the men are making. So look, come on now. Come on. Come on, Lexi. I I have a beef with this because for me, I do kind of feel like the number of times I've heard people complain that women are not being paid more, that we're not given those opportunities. And now here's someone who's trying to pay more and give women those opportunities. And then people want to hate. I ain't got time for it. I ain't got time. So this guy here actually responded to the video with Lexi. He said, Lexi is really missing the mark. This is from Fella. Lexi is really missing the mark on this. 1, WNBA players equal women hoopers in general. 2, they the ones who complain about having to go overseas and leave their families to earn more money. 3, this is consistent with Cube hiring Lisa Leslie and female head coaches. And I agree. I listened to Ice Cube this morning. He was on Pat McCaffrey's show. I can't show the clip because it's on ESPN and ESPN has copyright, so I can't show it to you on here. But in that interview, Ice Cube said he always wanted to work with the WNBA at some point. This was always a part of the plan. So it's not like he's not trying to take anything away from the WNBA. You can do both. I don't understand this. Sometimes I think we're so used to being disappointed that we don't know how to accept it when we get a win. And that's just kind of how I look at it. Arguably, you have to look at the stats, and I'm basing it on the numbers. Based on the numbers alone, Caitlin Clark is the best player right now in women's collegiate basketball. She's playing right now in the playoffs. So it just, I don't get it. And women, we got to talk about this. We got to stop hating on each other like this, man. Why can't we just be happy for each other? Why does this happen? I don't understand it. I don't get it at all. But I will say this to Caitlin Clark. It's an excellent offer. I think you should pursue it, but I also think you should still negotiate. Because this is a problem that I think a lot of us women don't often do. It's a problem. We're less likely to negotiate salary, regardless of the position, regardless of the career path. So it's great that he offered you $5 million, but I think you should still negotiate. That's just me. Thank you for the super chat, Christian. Your show is one of my faves on YouTube, and you look gorgeous as always. Oh, thank you, Christian. That's really sweet. I was a little groggy this morning, so that's good to hear. Thank you, Woofzo. Hi, Sabby. Hello. Thank you. Thank you for Shout out to my cousin Muniza for turning me on to Sabby and the RBN. Keep it up. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. And thank you for this one as well, Woofzo. Hi, Sabby. Danny says WNBA rookie minimum salary is $75,000. Right? Like some people are in the background like, Caitlin, take the money and run. Take the money and run. Damon said, put the NBA on ice. Maybe this will pressure the WNBA to offer these players higher salaries. Janine says, it doesn't help that she's white. Call a thing a thing. I hear you, Janine, but she is the best player. She's the best one. Miss Mississippi, who's to say Ice Cube is not going to offer a black woman player the same offer? Give it time. Yeah, give it time. You get it, Miss Mississippi. People got in their feelings on social media. Thank you. None of your business. NBA pays WNBA salary. People in stands is probable. Yeah. I do wish more people would come to the WNBA games. I think that's part of it as well. What is this? Oryx? Oryx the King? You need to bring in the crowd to get higher salary. Yeah. I wish more people would come to those games. I really do. How do we change that, right? But the Big Three is pretty popular. I got to tell you, pretty cool. I'll take that comment on Rumble, Corey. Thank you for the Rumble Rant, Mayfair. Glad to see protesters outside that fundraiser. These empty people are in for a surprise. Yeah, I know. I was excited to see that too. I was like, yeah. Bill Clinton, he probably showed up and was like, well, what the hell is this? Not used to that. Not used to that. Okay. What's that, Dwayne? The WNBA is a team game. We can talk about this, Dwayne. We can talk about this. Should we do call-in tonight? You guys want to do a short call-in before it goes away? I think we'll be switching to Zoom after call-in goes away, but maybe if we have time, we can. All right. If you haven't had a chance to do so, go ahead and smash that like button. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. And speaking of that protest, it appears that Joe Biden is having such a difficult time, not just with his approval rating, but the polls as well. He has actually had to bring in Obama and Bill Clinton for his fundraiser in New York City. Now, Stephen Colbert apparently was hosting this fundraiser. Lizzo is there. Like, it's just crazy, over the top, the amount of money that has been spent towards something like this instead of helping the American people. It's just crazy how much money can go into fundraising. And I just think about how that money could be used in different ways, right? But he had to call in Obama and Bill Clinton because word on the street is the Biden administration is actually really concerned about November. Part of that has to do with the recent announcement from RFK. We're going to get to that as well. But he had to call in the big dogs. CNN was actually covering this. They are saying that Barack Obama is crucial to Joe Biden securing a second term. Here we go.
Tomorrow, President Biden, former President Barack Obama, and former President Bill Clinton will all take the stage together to headline a high-dollar fundraiser at Radio City Music Hall in New York.
That's actually today, just FYI.
Sources tell CNN that Obama is planning to ramp up campaigning for Biden as the general election draws closer, and that he's made it clear that the 2024 election marks a, quote, all-hands-on-deck moment. Let's take you now live to the White House with CNN's Kayla Tausche. Kayla, tell us more about Obama's plans to help his former running mate.
Well, Boris, President Obama has been lending his support both in private conversations with his former vice president and former staffers, as well as public fundraising appeals aimed at energizing voters and filling Democrats' coffers. I'm told that the Biden campaign has largely been instructing former President Obama on how exactly he can be most helpful. And I'm told that he's been more than happy to oblige, especially when it comes to bolstering support among demographics like Black and Latino voters, as well as young voters. And while President Obama won't feature prominently on the campaign trail until really later this fall, leading up to the November election.
Pause. So there it is, folks. Joe Biden is relying on Barack Obama to basically funnel in Black voters, Black and Latino voters, because Joe Biden is losing support from the Black community and the Latino community. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is gaining support from the Black community and the Latino community. And of course, Joe Biden is also losing young voters as well because of the war in Gaza.
He has already recorded a series of fundraising videos that are expected to be released in succession in the coming weeks and months. And then there is that big high-dollar fundraiser that you mentioned that's happening tomorrow night in New York City at Radio City Music Hall, where 3 sources tell CNN that the hall there is expected to be well above the initial $10 million estimate set for the fundraising for that event, just underscoring the financial firepower that Democrats have going into November. Now, comedian Stephen Colbert is going to be moderating a conversation on stage with those 3 presidents, what some leading Democrats are calling a once-in-a-lifetime conversation. But I'm told that that conversation is going to be more thematic than substantive. It's going to highlight what President Biden has accomplished in the last 4 years, and what they believe the stakes are for the 2024 race. And to that end, Boris, Obama's 2012 campaign manager Jim Messina tells CNN that the fact that Donald Trump is likely to be the opponent for President Biden in the race just underscores the urgency of that mission and his willingness to help this year.
Likely to be the opponent? He is the opponent. What are you talking about? So, Stephen Colbert. So let me show you how they already messed up, right? Who made that decision? Who was at the table when that decision was made? If you're bringing Barack Obama in to try to help Joe Biden gain back support with the Black community at this particular fundraising event, then you need to know that Black people not really feeling Stephen Colbert like that. Black people not really feeling, I don't know. I can tell you right now, I don't know many Black folk watching Stephen Colbert. Sorry, it's a reality. It's just the reality. That's who you bring in, Stephen Colbert. Now, he might resonate more with, I would say, maybe some of the older voters, but more so white suburban wine moms, right? And then there's the younger voter issue. A lot of younger voters, and we're talking about the Gen Z generation, they not really rocking with Stephen Colbert either. It's just, who are these people? Who's making these decisions? I don't get it. I don't get it. Be Easy already said, who? Exactly. Most Black people don't know this dude. So it's just, who makes the decisions? Ay, ay, ay.
Kayla Tausche, live for us from the White House. Thanks so much, Kayla. Let's expand this conversation now with Leon Panetta. He's a former White House chief of staff under President Clinton. He also served as defense secretary and CIA director under President Obama. Secretary, thanks so much for being with us. Given the reporting.
Now they bring in a former CIA director and ask for his advice. If you never believed me before about how these government agencies are so involved with decision makings, believe me now.
I'm wondering what role you expect former President Obama to play in the 2024 election.
Well, look, I think it's a good step that the president is having a fundraiser with both former President Clinton and President Obama. They both got reelected as Democrats in the White House. They both were very popular, and they both had a good sense of messaging to the average American. And I think that's where, obviously, President Obama can be very effective. I mean, I think they have to be careful about where they use the former president. I would probably wait until we get closer to the convention and then to the election in the fall. But I think he can be a tremendous asset in terms of reaching not just the average American, but obviously the Latinos, the young people, the minorities that are going to be critical to Joe Biden if he's going to win this election.
Okay, so here's the problem with the Democratic Party, particularly the Biden administration at this point in time. They still think it's 2008. It's 2024. A lot of people that were passionate and excited about Barack Obama back then, not really trying to jive with Barack Obama like that anymore. A lot of us, he doesn't have that same appeal that he used to. I mean, there are a number of events that he actually had during the midterms where he went to speak in front of people. And a lot of people, it wasn't as packed as I think they thought that it was going to be. And there were people that protested against him, people that stood up and spoke out against him at those events. And I don't think Barack Obama was expecting that from the younger people, because he's looking at it as though, listen, I was able to get this demographic. I was able to win over young voters when I ran for president. That was years ago. And I think that the Democratic Party, they have a tendency to be reactive instead of proactive. They never get ahead of the game, right? Like they're always trying to do things at the last minute to fix the mistakes that were done along the way, or to try to correct some of the things with crumbs instead of a full meal, right? They're not proactive. And I don't ever remember them being proactive. If they were proactive, they would have gotten in front of Roe v. Wade, and that would have already been codified into law. And we wouldn't even be in this situation when it comes to the Supreme Court overturning that. So that's the thing. Like they think it's 2008. They're not with the times. They're out of touch and they're reactive. And
specifically on certain issues, he can be an effective messenger. We know that during his visit at the White House, he participated in an organizing call to celebrate the 14th anniversary of the Affordable Care Act. I'm wondering, how critical do you think messaging on health care generally is going to be in 2024?
Well, I think messaging is going to be very critical to the ability of Joe Biden to be able to win this election in November. And that messaging has to be about health care, about the Affordable Care Act. That messaging has to be about the economy and what needs to be done to make sure we continue to improve the economy.
So here's another problem that they tend to have. They continue to talk about messaging, getting the message right to voters, right? So the problem is not the messaging. The problem is that they're not producing. They don't actually want to fix any of these problems. There are a number of things that Joe Biden could have done by executive order that he decided not to do. He could decriminalize marijuana by executive order. He could do that on his own. He could have canceled all of student loan debt by executive order, right, on his own. So there are a number of things that could have been done. When it comes to healthcare, I think that is the wrong issue for him to run on because he hasn't improved it, right? When you make statements that say, if a Medicare for All bill came across my desk, I would veto it. That doesn't sound like you care about giving everyone healthcare in this country. It sounds like you really don't, which he doesn't. So I don't think that's something you really need to be focusing on. The Affordable Care Act is still a sore spot for some people who actually decided to give that program a chance, and they ended up paying more money than they were before. So I don't really know if that's the message you should be leading people with at this point in time. But notice what he is saying. He's not asking them to produce anything. He's just asking them to message in a certain way.
That messaging has to obviously deal with reproductive rights, which is a critical issue. We just saw in a House race in Alabama that was to be a Republican district, I think. A Democrat won, campaigning on reproductive rights and in vitro fertilization. So there are some very critical issues here that I think could be very helpful to the president with the right message.
So yesterday, President Biden finished up a tour of all 2024 swing states that he started after the State of the Union speech. The campaign is now apparently heeding Obama's warning to step up the number of events that he's holding. Do you think they should be doing even more?
Well, I think it's a critical moment here. Look, I think Trump is in a difficult position. He's going to be going into a trial. He's not able to go out and do a lot of campaign events. This is a moment where Joe Biden can basically dominate in the campaign arena. So
they are completely out of touch. Donald Trump doesn't have to do any campaign events. Donald Trump already proved to you that he didn't even have to get on the debate stage, and he had a number of candidates running against him. What are you talking about? He doesn't have to do that. There is a solid base that Donald Trump has that is going to support him regardless. There's a solid base that I would say the Democratic Party has. I don't think people are really passionate about Joe Biden, but the Democratic Party has that is going to support the Democratic Party regardless. The problem that Joe Biden is run into is that he has lost support among groups that the Democratic Party has, for years, they've been able to hold on to and not have to worry about losing that support. Barack Obama didn't lose support from African Americans when he ran for re-election, definitely not by this extent that Joe Biden has lost support. He didn't lose all the support from the Latino community, and he didn't lose all the support from young voters as well. Joe Biden has. And that is a sign about where the Democratic Party is headed. And if you want to know where the Democratic Party is headed, all you have to do is look at Joe Biden and look at him losing support. That is a number, that's a number of people that the Democratic Party at some point or another is going to have to try to find a way to win back, or they won't. And if they decide not to try to win those voters back, they'll just pivot to another demographic. Right now, I see them pivoting more towards the suburban moms. Joe Biden did this in Georgia. That's how he was able to win Georgia, right? They appeared to the suburban white moms. And I believe that is what they have in their back pocket, because they have a feeling that a lot of people are just fed up because they're not producing results. Now, that event that happened today, they also discussed this as well. Rare joint appearance of Biden and two predecessors underscores extraordinary moment in U.S. history. I just want to reword this. Rare joint appearance of Biden and two other war criminals. Let's call it that, because that's really what it is, folks. Let's get into it.
The Biden campaign is getting a jolt from an old friend who knows a thing or two about getting reelected. Barack Obama spent several hours at the White House last week visiting with his former vice president, and it was more than just a friendly visit. Our senior White House correspondent, MJ Lee, joins me now live from the White House with some new reporting that, MJ, you've done along with our colleague Jeff Zeleny. What are you hearing?
Well, Dana, just going back to that visit that you mentioned by President Obama to the White House last week, I'm told that the mood was cheerful. It was sort of a reunion of sorts for the two presidents' respective staff, too, given that they have known each other, many of them going back to the Obama White House, of course, but it was definitely a working visit. This was the Biden campaign putting the former president to work. The two spent a lot of time together, several hours, I'm told, taping a lot of materials for the Biden campaign that is going to get rolled out in the coming weeks, including, of course, related to the Affordable Care Act. And with the general election now fully underway, we do expect to see the former president increasingly more involved with the Biden campaign and certainly hitting the trail more, especially when we get into the fall. And tomorrow we are about to see this big fundraiser in New York City at Radio City Music Hall, where we will see not just President Biden, not just President Obama, but also former President Bill Clinton as well. The three of them are going to be on stage together, moderated.
Pause here. What you're looking at here, folks, is a picture of three war criminals. That's really what this is, right? They actually thought it was a good idea to bring Bill Clinton back around, considering all the things that have been released recently with Epstein and all that. You think that's the person that you should be hanging around right now? I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think that's a good idea. Again, the Democrat Party strategists thought that this was a good idea.
A conversation with Stephen Colbert. And these are tickets, Dana, that range from $225 to $500,000. There are going to be celebrities in the audience. Some of the
Pause. This is not for working class people. Hell, this ain't even for middle class people. So who are they really trying to appeal to? If the cheapest ticket is over $200 and it goes all the way up to $500,000, they're not trying to appeal to people like me and you. They're trying to appeal to rich, wealthy donors. That's it. She's telling you there's going to be a number of celebrities at this event. Why does this continue to happen? The Democratic Party didn't learn anything from Donald Trump winning in 2016 because they still have not found a way to pivot back to the working class. They really haven't found a way to do that. They have decided at some point or another, and I believe it started with Bill Clinton's presidency, to shift the Democratic Party closer towards the right and closer towards Wall Street and the military industrial complex. That is the crowd that they cater to now. They don't cater to the mom and dad that owns the little shop on the corner. They don't cater to the person that's working at Dunkin' Donuts. They don't cater to the people that's having to work two jobs. They're not talking to those people anymore. They're talking to people that have money. So they don't care about the average everyday Joe Schmo. And what they do is they've gotten celebrities like Fat Joe. He come out of nowhere to promote Joe Biden, to brag about Joe Biden. Lean back, Fat Joe, okay? Lean back. Stick to rap. That's why they're pulling all these celebrities out. I heard Nas was at the State House in New York today. You see what they're trying to do. Now they got time for them, but they don't have time to talk to you. When you try to approach them, when you show up to their events, they kick you out if you ask questions that they don't like. Always remember that.
Audience members will have an opportunity to get photographs taken by Annie Leibovich, the very famous photographer. So it's going to be sort of that kind of high dollar event. And our reporting is that the former president believes that this matchup between President Biden and Donald Trump is going to be extremely close in November. And he's described this as sort of an all hands on deck moment. And I think tomorrow evening, when we see those three presidents together, physically together, banding together to try to stop Donald Trump from returning to the White House, we're really going to see sort of a stunning visual of how much urgency national Democrats are feeling in trying to stop Donald Trump from coming back here to the White House, Dana.
MJ, thank you so much for that great reporting. We're going to pick up on that with the panel. Let's look first, Jeff, I want to come to you on this, about what a big part of the former president, the most recent Democratic former president, Barack Obama, is saying about the health care law that bears his name.
Before the ACA, young adults could be kicked off their parents' health care plan, often right when they were getting ready to head out on their own. All it takes is one diagnosis or one injury, one accident to throw off your plans if you don't have insurance. And thanks to the ACA, young people everywhere have some security. They have some freedom.
But the ACA was crumbs, and Barack Obama knows this. When he was running for office in 2008, remember, he was actually talking about some form of universal health care, but he actually caved to the Republican Party when he was president and gave this watered down version of health care. And there were many grumblings from people about the ACA when it was first launched. There were some technical mishaps there, which is to be expected with newer programs. But that being said, people were actually telling me, a friend of mine actually decided to try it out. And people were actually telling me that they were paying more under that than they were under their employer, their private insurance offered through their employer. So the thing is this, Barack Obama gave us watered down healthcare, right? He gave us crumbs when there could have been so much more. Every time I feel like we had this opportunity to get more for the people, and you deserve more, by the way. Don't think you don't, you do. Because this country, they can give money to Israel and everyone in Israel has health care, but you don't have health care. Make that make sense. So you do deserve better, and our government does have the money to pay for it. They just choose to spend it on the defense budget. They choose to spend it in other places. Anything instead of giving it to you. So I don't think this is a good message to send to people, the Affordable Care Act, to reach out to young people, especially a lot of the Gen Z kids. They're not really trying to hear this, man. Barack Obama, they looking at you with a side eye too. These were my students. They looking at you some kind of way too. All right. Because they don't hear you calling for a ceasefire. They don't hear you calling for, the end of the occupation. So you're not as beloved as you used to be, Obama. And I think he's starting to find that out.
Choose how they live their lives.
So Obamacare, obviously a big part of reaching out to the Obama coalition.
Absolutely.
The former Obama coalition, which is a big demographic group, or various demographic groups that Joe Biden absolutely needs to get reelected.
Absolutely needs. And you saw Vice President Harris and President Biden doing that this week as well during their trip to North Carolina, really emphasizing health care as an issue. Vice President Harris has talked a lot about abortion rights as a health care issue. And I think bringing Obama back is a rock star. And the Democratic Party needs some rock stars right now, especially at a time when President Biden's polling is a little bit lower, although he is saying in some of the fundraisers that I've gone to lately that his polling is coming back, and some of it is. But having a jolt like this from someone who is very popular still with his base and with the Democrats, former President Obama, is a big win.
He
Who is Obama's base at this point in time? Because it's not the people that it used to be. I would say it's bougie, right? Bougie folk. I would say Black voters that, for the most part, I think that support Obama today are a little bit more on the bougie side, a little bit more connected. right? People who are Democrat loyalists and will vote for the party regardless of who the nominee is. But a lot of us walked away from Barack Obama.
Is still popular, of course, with the Democratic base, and so is the ACA Obamacare. The latest from KFF asks about the favorability of the Affordable Care Act. 18 to 29-year-olds, young people, 67%. All adults, 59%. I should say, as I bring you in, Mario, it is kind of remarkable that the young people who voted for Barack Obama are now in their 30s. They're kind of out of the demo.
Yeah, but to Jeff's point, I mean, he still remains the most popular figure in the Democratic Party. Look toward 2022 when they utilized him, or dispatched him rather, as more or less of a closer, right? He was visiting Pennsylvania. He made several trips to Georgia as well. The fact that they're bringing him in this early in the cycle just shows just that sense of urgency, to use the word that MJ used, that the Biden campaign and Democrats have. We know that Barack Obama has.
Pause for a second. The fact that they're bringing Obama in this early shows you just how poorly Joe Biden is doing. That's what it shows you. He phrased it differently, the sense of urgency. Barack Obama is here so early on during the election year because Joe Biden is performing so poorly. That's why. That is why. Had some concerns about a lack of urgency that he felt on the part of the Biden campaign. So we're seeing him getting engaged pretty early on in this cycle.
And it looks as though this has gotten under the skin of the Republican candidate, the former president, Donald Trump. I'm just going to read part of something he posted on his social media platform. I'm not running to terminate the ACA as crooked Joe Biden. That's actually what it says. Biden disinformates. You think that's how you would pronounce it? Disinformates or misinformates all the time. The ACA, or Obamacare as it's known, much better, stronger, and far less expensive. In other words, make the ACA much, much better for far less money or cost. I think this was, what time was this? Like 1:30 in the morning?
Yeah, he had many of them.
Yeah, and the Biden campaign had some fun with disinformate and misinformate. But the gist, putting that aside,
right?
The gist of what he is trying to do is say, after all those years of we're going to repeal Obamacare, now he's saying, no, we're just going to make it better. It really is telling.
And I remember, too, a couple months ago, Donald Trump was on this kick about talking about the ACA, something that, to the disdain, I should say, of many of his advisors and people in the Republican Party, they still are, have nightmares, I think, about their failure to deliver on their promise when Donald Trump was in office to repeal and replace Obamacare. And now Donald Trump bringing that message back is something a lot of Republicans do not think is a winning message ahead of November. But all that said, I do think there's one thing I want to point out that.
Pause here for a second. You know what they're not mentioning? They're also not mentioning that Joe Biden also said that he was going to make the Affordable Care Act better. Remember that? That was one of his campaign promises, that he was going to improve that. So again, that's just another example to show you how Trump and Biden are similar in certain ways.
They have in their story that I find is really interesting is that Obama is saying this is going to be a close election. He's trying to raise alarm bells about that. It's something that the Trump campaign and Donald Trump himself also believe. They all recognize that it's going to have to be, as MJ described it, an all hands on deck effort to get their respective candidates elected. And I do think one thing that I've just picked up on, and I cover the Trump campaign, I don't cover the Biden administration or how Obama's efforts, but I'm surprised they haven't brought him in sooner, to be honest, because I feel like he is such a star, as both of you have pointed out. And I take the point that it is very early, but I'm curious to see how involved he actually is, because I know that like even my conversations with Democrats, I pick up that he's not as much front and center as maybe they think he should.
There is time.
Let me pause for a second. You want to hear something funny when they say it's still really early? It reminds me of the Red Sox, because every year, the years where the Red Sox are doing really well, like right out of the gate after opening day, and we're doing really well, people don't say that. But when we have those years, and we're struggling right now, when we have those years where we're not performing well right out of the gate, people are like, it's still early. Which makes sense to say that in April after opening day. But then it gets to be around like August. And people are like, it's still early. And I'm like, it's not early anymore. So I just wonder how long they're going to continue to say that it's still early for trying to help Joe Biden.
I'm guessing that's, and obviously that's the reporting that it is going to change.
Joining us right now, Democratic strategist Joe Trippi and CNN political commentator and Republican strategist Alice Stewart. Good to see both of you. All right, so Joe, are you going to be there at that blinged out affair?
No, I won't be there, but I do think it is all hands on deck. I think this is a tomorrow night will be another fundraiser that again will widen the gap between Biden's money and the Democrats' cash on hand compared to very dismal Republican National Committee dollars and dwindling Trump campaign finances. So I'm glad the Obama is out there. He's right to call this all hands on deck. It is. It's not just for Biden, for democracy itself. It's all hands on deck this November. And I think that'll be part of the rallying call that President Obama, Clinton, and Biden, of course, make.
You can't claim it's about democracy when you're trying to actively prevent third party and independent candidates from being on the ballot. It's such a joke. And notice she described it as a blinged out affair. Again, this is all about an event for people that have money. That's who they're catering to and that's who they're talking to, right? Like, it would be great to actually see them, have the balls to go actually talk to those protesters across the street from the event and hear what they have to say. But they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that because honestly, they don't answer to them anymore. They're not trying to, help the working class. They don't really care what constituents actually want. They just care what the donor class wants. That's why she calls it a blinged out event.
But Joe, how influential would this dinner, this gathering be? I mean, obviously people who had at least $250 or, hundreds of thousands of dollars to get a ticket, they're already on board.
Well, I think Obama, first of all, Democratic grassroots fundraising is on fire, whether it comes from Obama or Biden. And I think the dinner and the event will bring more attention at every level. And I think right now, Democratic activists and donors, and I'm talking about $10 to hundreds of thousands, are realizing there's an advantage here. It's time to pile on. It's time to widen that gap. And so I think you're seeing, at least in the fundraising that my firm does a lot of fundraising for progressive and other groups. And we're seeing a big uptick, particularly in the defense of democracy. So I think this event tomorrow will just fuel that.
Okay, so you see how the progressives and the word progressive has basically been co-opted by the Democratic Party, because he's telling you here that he does a lot of fundraising for progressive groups. Anybody can call themselves a progressive now and not actually agree with progressive policies.
All right, so Alice, this kind of gearing up for Biden's re-election, I mean, certainly this is signaling a shift that perhaps maybe the Trump campaign needs to be rethinking its opponent.
Not at all, Fred. Look, I think when Obama says they're all hands on deck, it's more of a freak out amongst Democrats. Look, they're going to need every penny of this money they're raising. And look, that event sounds pretty cool. I wouldn't mind attending and getting my picture taken by Annie Leibovitz. But they're going to need all that money. This campaign and this administration is in overdrive trying to convince Americans that the economy is good, the border is secure, and our nation is safe. And none of that is true. They're even spending millions of dollars, Fred, on trying to shore up Hispanics and African American voters, really part of the heart and soul of the Democratic Party. And they're spending money to keep those people on board because they're losing those to the Trump administration. So there's no amount of money that's going to make people feel as though their economic situation is better. They don't feel that way. And the polling indicates this. And you look at every battleground state poll, the Real Clear Politics average shows Donald Trump ahead of Joe Biden in those polls. And that's a major factor for this Biden administration. They got to raise a lot of money to turn things around. And there's no amount of star power that's going to make Joe Biden any younger, make people feel like the economy is good when it's not.
Well, I guess she told them. Janine says she said what she said. Yeah. Maybe they should have started with her and not ended with her. But let me show you this event, because this is the flyer for the event. And I shared this on Twitter and I said, war criminals event tonight in NYC. I hope there are protests. And there were. So you can see it here, March 28th, one night only, an evening with President Joe Biden and Presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton in conversation with Stephen Colbert. And listen to this. Here are the special guests. Cynthia Erivo, Queen Latifah had the nerve. They actually got Queen Latifah to come to this. Like, seriously. Lizzo, Leah Michelle, and Ben Platt, hosted by Mindy Kaling. Now, Lizzo, of all people, I'm surprised she, not Miss, I just took a DNA test and found out I'm 100% that, what? Lizzo, who actually just had complaints filed against her from her workers. B says not Queen. I know. Queen Latifah, right? Yeah. They pulled out all the star power. A hot mess. And so shut it down for Palestine. They actually posted the announcement for the protest here. It says shut down Biden's mega fundraiser. Democrats party while Gazans die. March 28th, 4 p.m. NYPL Bryant Park. And you see the X's here across their eyes. So that was the protest. And I'll show you again here. It should be here. Yeah. So these were the protesters outside of the event. I believe they said hundreds of people ended up showing up. All right. So they were out there loud and proud. All I got to tell you, like, again, guys, don't stop the protests. Don't stop talking about what's happening to the Palestinian people. You know, we talk about like having a moment, and sometimes that moment can slip away from us. I look back during the George Floyd protests, and I remember all those people going home after Trump lost, as if all of a sudden the issue with police brutality was no longer a problem anymore. I don't even hear a lot of people talk about police brutality anymore. It's not like it stopped. Incidents were still happening after George Floyd and before George Floyd. So it's just, I felt like that was a missed moment. So that's why I continue to tell you, while we have this moment right now, don't stop talking about it. I don't care how much money Joe Biden is raising. It could actually end up being young voters, African-American voters, and Latino voters, the people that Joe Biden is losing, that decide this election. Let's go to some of the comments here. Thank you, Red 6. The WNBA has never returned a profit in 20 plus years. That's why the salaries are so low. Interesting. Be Easy said, you can use an avatar, don't have to be on video for Zoom. Right. You guys don't have to be on video for Zoom. You can turn your camera off too. Opossum King, breaking: the President Biden fundraiser in New York City with former presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton has netted a record-breaking, is that 25 million? According to the Biden campaign. So you see, think about how we could use that money in other ways. You know, where are these donors to donate 25 million to mutual aid, to donate 25 million so that people can put clinics in their neighborhoods, to donate 25 million so that people can have hospitals. There are people that live in this country. There's no hospital in their town. You know, things like that, to provide homes for people. Where's that 25 million? This is how money is wasted in this country. It's thrown towards these political campaigns. Now, if Joe Biden loses, which I won't be surprised if he does, that money just went to what? To what? We talked about this before. All the money Bernie Sanders raised for what? For him at the end to tell you to vote for Joe Biden. Thank you, New York Varsity. So if Biden has support from Swifties, Hollywood, Obama, and big news outlets, and they still lose, will they self-examine or replay the blame game? That is a good question. It ultimately comes down to the swing states, which right now Joe Biden is losing in every swing state. But that's really what decides the election. And I hate to be that person, but it's true. It's going to come down to those states, the Arizona, the Michigan, the Pennsylvania. They're calling Georgia a swing state now, right? I still think Georgia's red, but whatevs. It's going to come down to those states. Thank you, Omar. These scumbags are all in the same team. Wars, bank bailout, and no money for healthcare. It's true. Thank you, David. Vote harder, message harder 2024 and every year. I feel you. Thank you, Shalon. I know I definitely can't speak for minority communities, but isn't it disrespectful to assume that they can just trot Obama and Lizzo out and the Black voters will come back to the Dems? It just seems so condescending. It is condescending, Shalon. It is. It's very condescending. It's pandering. It really is. Thank you, I sang. Trump will win just by how bad the Democrats are running their campaign. Interesting. Be Easy says DL Hughley, Jay-Z, Cardi B, Lil Nas X, Sexy Red, Glorilla is who the White House invites to talk politics. Right. Thank you, David. I still remember gaming influencer Greg Miller making a Biden 2020 Animal Crossing island. I fear who in that space will shill for him this year. Thank you, Tara. Biden can't run on his accomplishments, so messaging it is. This only works on voters who have no clue about who Trojan horse Obama really is. Hashtag SMH. Thank you for that. New York Varsity says the Cowboys would be a better example, Sabs. Oh, yeah, the Cowboys is a good example. That's true. It's still early. Wawa. As a Black voter, I'm not voting for Biden due to his lack of action against the Israel government's crimes against humanity and sending them weapons. I hear you, Wawa. I hear you. I'll take the comments on Rockfin. Shut it down. Thank you, Skip. Roe was calculated to use as a way to get women to vote Democratic. It is the reason the Republicans lost in the last election. It is still being used the same way. You don't need voters if you can stuff the box. Interesting. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Sabby and Eric. Thank you so much. We can pull up part 2 of Tight VNC when you're ready, Corey. And thank you for the Rumble rant, Mayfair. Obama and the celebs do not have the pull they used to have. This is the surprise. Not going to happen. Say goodbye, Joe. We won't. Interesting. And thank you for this one as well. Panetta, like 101 years old and former CIA, total tool for the establishment. Total tool. And thank you for this one. War criminals gathering. How fun for them. Cheerful reunion. Ugh. BS. Obama is running things. Joe's his puppet. No embarrassment over creepy Clinton. What? Yeah, I know. If you haven't had a chance to do so, go ahead and smash that like button. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. And speaking of elections, RFK Jr. finally announced his VP pick. Now, this is causing a lot of buzz on the interwebs out there. He has decided to pick Nicole Shanahan. I talked about her last week. Now, the RFK supporters, they are split over this decision. Some of them are excited about this pick, and some of them are not happy that this is who he chose. Some people have actually, decided to walk away from his campaign because he chose Nicole Shanahan. This is someone I've said before, she describes herself as a progressive. She has supported Democrat candidates before, although she did in her speech, I guess basically criticize the Democratic Party and the Republican Party for not meeting the needs of the American people. But she is known as supporting Democrat candidates, also George Soros. She's connected there. She donated a lot of money to RFK's Super PAC. So that Super Bowl ad that you saw of RFK, she actually donated a heavy sums of money to that. So some people are upset because they feel like she bought her way in. This is someone that does have a lot of money. And some people are upset because RFK chose her and not Tulsi Gabbard. There's a lot going on the interwebs, but let's go ahead and dive in to RFK's announcement. Here it is, folks. We got a lot to unpack here.
Why I'm so proud to introduce to you the next Vice President of the United States, my fellow lawyer, a brilliant scientist, technologist, a fierce warrior mom, Nicole Shanahan.
That, of course, was Robert F. Kennedy Jr. this afternoon in Oakland announcing Nicole Shanahan as his 2024 running mate. Shanahan is a San Francisco-based attorney and entrepreneur. New polling shows Kennedy in double digits, but still trailing President Biden and Donald Trump. But one.
Let me pause here for a second because the polls are iffy. You're going to see another poll that says something else. But what this does show you is that RFK Jr. consistently has been at that double digit mark, I think, from the moment actually that he announced his campaign. It's been up and down. At one point, I've seen it like at 25%. It changes. But for the most part, he seems to stay at least at the double digits.
One factor that could give his candidacy a major boost, getting on the ballot in all 50 states. There you see where he's on the ballot now. Just one lonesome state out there out west, Utah. And this is where the libertarians come in. And the candidate and the party are talking. Okay, panel, how important is it for, obviously he's got to get on the ballot to get elected, but the Libertarian Party has been on the ballot in all 50 states in 5 elections since Reagan was elected in 1980. That would be huge. Yeah. How do you think, from all the libertarians you know, I know all you guys have read The Fountainhead. Oh, yeah. I know I have.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with you, Mick. How do you think they're going to react to this election? And will it help?
Let me pause here for just a second about the Libertarian Party, because you're actually going to hear from the chair of the Libertarian Party in just a second about this decision. So we do have to acknowledge the fact that RFK Jr. is only on the ballot in one state. Although he's met signature requirements for a state like Arizona, he's not on the ballot there yet. So basically, strategically, it would be easier for him if he were the nominee of the Libertarian Party, because then he would get that 50 state ballot access. But the question is, does the Libertarian Party actually want RFK Jr.? And considering now that he chose Nicole Shanahan, how do they feel about her? Because you're going to hear what Angela has to say about his pick. I don't know how else to say this. It makes me wonder, because RFK Jr. keeps saying they're going to be on the ballot in all 50 states. It is really hard as an independent to make that happen. And it makes me wonder if in the end, he's going to end up doing some type of write-in campaign. I don't know. I don't know what it is. But RFK Jr. is saying one thing and the Libertarian Party is saying something different. I'm going to let you hear what this guy says here, and then you're going to hear from Angela herself. I want you to hear what she had to say about this.
Some gain their endorsement.
First of all, there's a bunch of different questions there. I have no idea who this is. I thought it was Sergey Brin's ex-wife. Yes. She was the lady who paid for his Super Bowl ad. She's on the ticket mostly
$4 million worth of ad
to get money, which is a good reason to take a vice president. No one knows who she is, which is fine. I don't think she's going to be the vice president.
Well, I mean, again, an unconventional choice by an unconventional candidate.
Kennedy,
we live in a Joe Rogan world, man.
Kennedy screwed up and just didn't understand ballot access. That's Utah's the easiest state in the country to get on, and he needs to be on the Libertarian now to have any chance, or else his campaign is over.
But he's got to be the nominee.
But I don't think he didn't understand ballot access. And I say that because he actually has been on a number of shows and where people did explain this to him. I think I remember him seeing on Kim Iverson's show as well, I think twice. So people did explain to RFK Jr. about this. So come on, he's a Kennedy. He's from a political dynasty. Like he knows how this works. I don't think that was the issue at all. But in reference to him running through the Libertarian Party, this is what the chair of the Libertarian Party had to say about RFK Jr.'s pick of Nicole Shanahan. And she don't sound too happy about it. Listen to this.
I think that a lot of libertarians are a little bit confused over why he chose Nicole Shanahan. I'm sure she's a lovely person, but she doesn't necessarily fit into alignment with any of our views.
And okay, let me press you on that. In particular, what are her views that are not in alignment, that conflict with libertarian platform?
Well, we haven't really heard her make any strong political statements today, but I know that she was a former Biden and Buttigieg supporter, and she supported Gascon, who, you know, from a libertarian perspective, is not been a good district attorney. We don't like that he doesn't seem to respect property rights.
Let me pause. So I told you this was going to be an issue for some, right? Like Nicole Shanahan, again, she describes herself as a progressive. It appears Angela has done her homework. People have researched her to see who she donated to. You know, she was supporting the Democratic Party. So it also said something to some of RFK supporters that it appears that RFK Jr. has not fully detached himself from the Democratic Party. And that's what some people were saying online by this pick in Nicole. There was a lot of bitterness online after this pick. I think for whatever reason, a lot of his supporters expected him to choose like a Jesse Ventura or to choose Tulsi Gabbard. And it sounds like if he was going to pick a female, it seems like from the online discourse that they wanted him to choose Tulsi Gabbard, someone who was completely detached from the Democratic Party. She's also like in the Silicon Valley, you know, bro area, like, I don't know, tech money and just big money. It makes me feel grimy.
So I'm really unsure how she's going to fit in with the Libertarian Party. You know, I'm anxious to hear about it.
Okay, well, what about the top of the ticket himself, RFK Jr.? Now, we know that he visited your convention or your gathering, I don't know what the right word is, in February. By a convention, thank you. By many accounts, it went well. He was warmly received. It's been reported that you personally have spoken with him about a possible party ticket. I know that the party gathers here in Washington on May 23rd, is it? And you can pretty much decide whatever you want to decide at this point. What is the latest thinking? What is the latest, as much as you can tell me or care to reveal, about your talks with RFK Jr.?
Certainly. Well, you know, I don't get to hand choose who our presidential nominee is going to be, but I have given him, I've given him my ear several times. And to be fair, I do that with all of our presidential candidates, Michael Rechtenwald, Lars Mepstad, Mike Termott, all of them. But I've explained that if you're going to seek the Libertarian National Committee's nomination for president, you've got to work to get delegates. We as members don't cozy up to someone who doesn't want to make an effort to get to know us. And he seems.
So you see that? So this seems to be similar to the same problem that Dr. West had being a part of the Green Party, is that Angela is basically saying to RFK Jr. that, like, you can't just come in here with name recognition and not do the work. You're going to have to do the work like all the other libertarian candidates, right? They do have candidates running. They have Lars, I believe Chase Oliver is also running with them. So they do have candidates that are running. But just because you're a Kennedy, you can't walk in here and not do the work like everybody else. So it sounds like a similar thing. So what I've noticed is that, some of the third parties, the Green Party and Libertarian Party, don't seem to be too keen on someone just coming into their party, someone that has a big name and coming into the party. And just because they have that big name, being able to kind of, I don't want to say use the party or take advantage of the party, but basically be a part of it for the campaign and not really be a contributing member going forward, and et cetera, right? So this is it speaks volumes. It does go to show you that, you know, even with the third parties, just because they're third parties, that doesn't mean that you can just come in and kind of have it your way.
To understand that, you know, he came to California. He sent some people to New York. Unfortunately, I believe he had a scheduling conflict. But it really remains to be seen what he's going to do between now and May. You've got to work to get your delegates. And usually when people attend these state conventions, they are already going with who they're going to choose in mind. You know, that's why we go to these nominating conventions. We go because we want to be the ones deciding who's going to represent us nationally.
Okay, so doesn't sound too good over there. Now, RFK Jr. for me, I told you guys, I think if RFK Jr. were to change his position on Israel and Gaza, which I don't think he will, I think he is a Zionist true and through. I know some of you have been very offended by some of the comments that he's made about the Palestinian people. I told you before, I can't vote for RFK Jr. I cannot vote for anyone who just basically is for the war, someone who says that they're a peace candidate, and then I see them on Twitter saying give Israel all the weapons that they need, you know, calling Palestinian people pampered and spoiled. I can't support anyone who doesn't get the Palestinian issue right. That is a red line for me, because what you see happening in Gaza, that is just the beginning for what could happen to other countries in that region and other countries across the world. That is just the beginning. I've told you before how dangerous Zionism can be. So he's not my candidate. But it seems like bringing in Nicole Shanahan, you're going to see her backstory here in just a second. It seems like this is also his way of trying to capture some of the younger voters who may not like his position on Gaza, but they may be attracted to Nicole because she is younger, she's youthful, right? And Nicole has a rags to riches story. Listen to this.
Oh, great.
Across.
What young people are faced with today is completely unprecedented, and it's going to take a new generation of leadership that understands deeply those threats, because they are themselves technologists, to address the issues at hand. It's going to take leadership that has spent their life in technology. It's going to take leadership that understands what questions to ask, how to ask them, and what it looks like to implement a plan. This is not the America of the 1950s. This is the America of 2024. And in this America, it's going to take communities coming to the White House that never have actually been in the White House. And these are going to be tech communities. These are going to be Gen Z communities.
So you see this? These are going to be Gen Z communities. You see? So this is the person that he's trying to get to appeal to the younger voters. That's my theory.
These are going to be millennial communities who really believe that working together is going to get us to a healthier America with solutions that actually work. I was born in Roseville, California, near Sacramento. Then my mom and dad decided to move back to Oakland, into the home my dad grew up in. You learn from a young age growing up in Oakland that we are all made equal and we all get a shot at something great. And the color of your skin just gives you a different, cool cultural perspective. And you know, I'm half Chinese, half Caucasian, but to the people around me, I was Nicole. My mom immigrated to the United States in 19...
Okay, so you see this part of the story? This is someone who comes from an immigrant family, right? So you guys see what he's doing? Oh man, what's this? Whoever, she grew up in Oakland. That's a rich area as far as I'm concerned. It wasn't always that way though. Oakland was not always that way. But you see what he's trying to do?
1983 from Guangzhou, China. My father in particular struggled with substance abuse, various mental health challenges. We relied on government assistance for a good portion of my childhood. Every time my dad lost a job, there wasn't a lot of money to cover basic expenses like food. And we would get food stamps and go to the local grocery store with our mom, my brother, and I. And at the checkout counter, I remember she would ask my brother and I to go stand by the magazines when it was time to pay. Whew. It was hard. It's really hard. Those programs, they saved my family.
So you guys see this? So here's another thing. This is someone that grew up having to be on welfare, right? Someone whose family had to use like food stamps or whatever. And she said those programs helped and saved. Listen to this.
Gave me a chance. I went to the University of Puget Sound in Tacoma, Washington. I graduated in 2007, and I started working actually on medical device patents as a paralegal. I was always asked to be kind of the resident law firm nerd that was in charge of making sure the software always worked well and represented all of the client data correctly. And I loved it. I was at Santa Clara Law School, which is really in the heart of Silicon Valley, and trains some of the top IP law professionals in the country. In 2014, I joined Stanford Law and Computer Science to become a Codex Fellow. My center at Stanford, Codex, one of our core themes is how to build humanistic programming into AI. AI unregulated can be disastrous for us. We're already seeing early signs of it. And you know, on day one of Bobby Kennedy's presidency as his vice president, I will mobilize the best legal ethicists in AI on the planet.
Let me pause here because you guys are cracking me up in the chat. Rose said, from food stamps to a billionaire husband. How did that happen? You guys are cracking me up. But we're not going to play this entire thing. It's really long, but you get an idea of who she is. So what RFK Jr. is basically trying to do, he got someone who was young and young. I mean, she's not in her 50s. She's not in her 40s. He got someone who was younger. He found someone that was from an immigrant family, like her mom immigrated to the United States, someone who actually had to use welfare, was on welfare programs. Right? Someone who basically is trying to paint it as a rags to riches story. But remember the reason how she got her money, right? She married Sergey Brin. Sergey Brin was a co-founder of Google. Then she got divorced. Okay. I ain't saying she a gold digger. Anyway, Nicole has a lot of money. A lot of money. Okay. So here's the other thing. Now, someone pointed this out. I didn't think about this. You guys let me know how you feel. But she kind of bought her way in. Now, Catherine brought up something about The Voice. I don't know. You guys let me know. Catherine said, I'm going to say something about RFK's VP pick that comes after years of being an executive advertising producer. And that is the following. Most advertisers prefer a male voice over in their TV and radio ads, as deep male voices have a stronger impact in relaying a message, especially in positions of power. Since RFK is already handicapped in that department, his VP pick, who sounds like a nervous high school girl with a whiny voice, was very misguided in my opinion. Even if her ideas were brilliant, and she should have kept it at immigration, foreign wars, and protection of the First Amendment instead of microplastics. She's projected nothing that says competent world leader that is prioritizing issues based on urgency. This may hurt him badly. And how do you guys feel about that? Do you think her voice is an issue? I don't know. Again, like I said, I think he's trying to have someone like her appeal to the younger population, maybe some of the people that don't want to vote for Biden or Donald Trump. And now there's a difference of opinion. Like there was some criticism there. But Ryan brought up something else. Like I said, not everyone is upset by this decision. Ryan said, weeks ago, I began researching Nicole Shanahan. A gut feeling suggested she was going to be the pick. I really wish folks would have familiarized themselves with her before dramatically jumping ship, damaging campaign efforts. So you see this? I told you some people left after it was announced that she was probably going to be the pick. In this clip from long before VP talks or presidential run by RFK Jr., she speaks about her history and this being a time to heal. Sound familiar? There are so many reasons she fits. So listen to what she said in this clip here. Again, this is before she was chosen.
The next slide, please. My grandfather came around eventually, and he actually raised my mother as his son because he needed somebody to bring up. And my mother made it to the United States under Deng Xiaoping's kind of open door policy. She was an accountant. And so she ended up in the Bay Area in school learning how to balance books. I was always confused by my mother. She never told me about her life. I'm still learning about it, the pain, the struggle, the abuse. And, you know, her legacy is one that I think is going to be about that immigrant, swallow the pain, and do your best with what you have. And that white knuckle approach to life is extremely hard, but it's also extremely effective. And I don't think it's the way that we carry on in the next generation. I think it's time to heal.
Interesting there. Time to heal, right? But listen to what James said. He responded to that video. James Roach said, but isn't her main claim to fame and wealth is that she divorced the right guy, like the former Miss Gates and the former Miss Bezos and the former ... You know, it's really interesting too that this was actually the nail in the coffin for some of RFK's supporters, because I would have thought the nail in the coffin would have been his support for Israel. You know, him saying fund Israel. And some people did walk away then, but it seemed like more people were more upset about his pick for Nicole Shanahan than his position on Israel and Gaza. So it's just really interesting. Again, I said before, I feel like she kind of bought her way in. And even Robert Reich said something about her money. Now, I'm going to play this clip from Robert Reich, but I just want to say again, Robert Reich, a lot of times he talks out both sides of his mouth because he's really good at telling you what the problem is. But then he tells you to continue to do what you are already doing to allow that problem to persist. I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. So he mentions here about Nicole's money. Listen to this.
RFK's running mate, Nicole Shanahan, was picked solely because she has so much money. I mean, talk about a cynical ploy. I mean, we are in an era where big money is rotting, poisoning our political system. And so somebody who is already a spoiler, who's there for no reason other than what? His own ego, to choose somebody who's going to help him be even more of a spoiler because she has a lot of money to be his vice president? I mean, can you imagine? Is anybody else outraged about this? You should be. RFK's.
So here's the problem with Robert, okay? Because Robert, this is the same guy that just last year, he was telling people that he wanted Liz Cheney to run for president so that we wouldn't get Donald Trump. Robert Reich, he's really good at explaining the problem, but then he'll talk about the money, the corruption with the money. He'll talk about labor. He'll talk about all those things, but then he'll still tell you to support people like Joe Biden. He never goes that extra mile to tell you to stop doing the things that's causing this to happen in the first damn place. So there's that. Now, RFK Jr. actually did respond recently to his VP pick. He was just on News Nation with Chris Cuomo. Let's go ahead and see this here.
Yesterday, independent presidential candidate RFK Jr. announced his choice for VP running mate, 38-year-old Nicole Shanahan, self-described progressive through and through. Well, then why isn't she running as a Democrat? Same reason Kennedy isn't. They wouldn't let him into the primary process. She came from being the daughter of a poor Chinese immigrant mother to a millionaire tech entrepreneur. Here are the highlights from the announcement.
Well, I'm proud to introduce to all of you the next Vice President of the United States of America, Nicole Shanahan. Thank you all very much.
Every time my dad lost his job, our family just couldn't cover expenses. Food, gas, clothing, upkeep. I don't think we would have made it without food stamps and government help. As you probably know, I became very wealthy later on in life, but my roots in Oakland taught me many things I have never forgotten. That the purpose of wealth is to help those in need. So I come to you today as a former Democrat. I come to you as a woman not quite 40. I come to you as someone who has experienced sickness and health and poverty and wealth. And I come to you as a mother. If you are one of those disillusioned Republicans, I welcome you to join me, a disillusioned Democrat, in this movement to unify and heal America.
Got to tell you, I thought that was well delivered, okay? Now, how did it play? Depends who you ask. All right, let's bring in Robert F. Kennedy Jr. right now. Thank you very much, Bobby, for joining us. It's good to have you.
Chris, great to be back with you.
I want to get through some big points so we can get to the people's questions for you. Look, the knock on Shanahan is easy, that she's not ready to be VP. You're young. We don't have, there are no questions like with Trump and Biden in terms of, well, what happens if Bobby gets sick? How do you respond to the idea that Shanahan checks a lot of boxes, but none that would make her able to run the country?
I would say a couple things, Chris. One is that I'm guessing she probably has a higher IQ than almost anybody who I've seen in public life today. She's an expert on AI, which we need in the government right now. She's an expert on chronic disease, which is probably arguably our biggest issue in this country. We've gone from 6% of people having chronic disease when my uncle was president to 60% today. We've got an entire generation disabled by neurological injuries, autoimmune injuries, allergic injuries. And we have nobody talking about it. We're paying more now, Chris, for diabetes than for our defense budget. So when I was a kid, a typical pediatrician.
We'll be careful with this because YouTube can be kind of funny about that medical stuff. But one thing I think that's important, again, she does describe herself as a progressive, and this turns some people off, the fact that he chose her, because it signals to people that he hasn't fully walked away from the Democratic Party, which is it's a sign to people, right? So there's that. But then there's also this point here. I wanted to fast forward just a little bit because I want you to hear what RFK Jr. says here at this moment. Remember, whoever you pick for vice president actually does matter, because if something were to happen to RFK Jr. and he was president, then she would be president of the United States. So just keep that in mind. And that's how, people are looking at this.
The Libertarian Party is interested in you. They have some questions about Shanahan. You'll have to meet with them. Do you have to make that work to get on enough state ballots to be viable to win? And if you cannot get on enough state ballots to be viable to win, will that be the demarcation line for you in terms of whether you decide to stay in the race or not?
Chris, people have been asking me this from the beginning. I get this question. And I know you don't follow the crowd on anything, but I do get this question. from every reporter, what are you going to do if you don't get on the ballot? And I say the same thing every time. I say, we're going to be on the ballot in every state, all 50 states and the District of Columbia. I'm not saying that to spin something or to, feed you a line. I'm saying it because it's going to happen, and it's going to happen very, very quickly. So just, give us about 8 weeks.
I'm giving it to you. I'm asking it conditionally, just with where the map is right now.
No,
and with the Libertarian ticket, do you need them? Do you need to run on their line?
No. I'm very aligned with Libertarians on a lot of issues. I love Libertarians. I love the way they think about liberty. I think it's really critical and important. And I think on 80% of the issues, I'm aligned with 80% of Libertarians. So I do like the idea of running on their line, and we've talked about it and toyed with it and talked to them about it, but we don't need to do that. We're not going to need any political party. We're going to make it on our own.
I mean, look.
Okay, so let's talk about something here, ladies and gentlemen. I know my Wi-Fi was a little bit choppy. I think it says it's stable now. I haven't actually reset my router in a while, so I need to get back in the habit of doing that. But it says it's stable for now. But what I wanted to say is that I think RFK Jr. is not being honest here. The reality is, as an independent, it is very difficult for you to get on the ballot in all 50 states. I mean, look at someone like Ross Perot, who was a billionaire, right? And he actually did pretty well when he was on the debate stage, but it is very difficult. So for him to say that he doesn't really need the Libertarian Party, I think it seems like to me he must be banking on Nicole's money to help get him that ballot access in those states. Because the way is you can get the signatures and grassroots efforts and get on the ballot like the Green Party's doing with Jill Stein, or you can kind of buy your way onto the ballot. And it seems like to me, that's what he's banking on, So, but I think he's being disingenuous there to make it seem like he doesn't really need them. Like, I think you do need them. I think you do. Now, that being said, this is actually really scaring the Biden administration. Apparently, after this announcement was made, the Biden administration apparently went into panic mode and started making some phone calls. Because again, this is someone who donated to people like Pete Buttigieg, the Biden administration. She has the George Soros connection. She has the WEF connection. She has donated to the Democratic Party. She's young. She's a part of that tech Silicon Valley area, right? So they know that this actually could hurt Joe Biden. Listen to what they said here on Fox at 5 or 5 at Fox.
Now we begin with the Democrats in a panic mode as they scramble to save President Biden's re-election hopes from the threat of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Shortly after RFK Jr. named his vice presidential pick, frantic Democrats hopped on a phone call, blasting the third-party candidate. They referred to Kennedy as a, quote, spoiler, and his campaign as, quote, dangerous, claiming that if he's in the race, Biden will lose and Trump will win. According to Axios, the Biden campaign has already started going on offense, assembling a political machine just to attack RFK Jr. And the DNC is building a team to take on third-party candidates who stand in Biden's way. Critics are ripping Democrats for trying to silence third-party presidential bids and, quote, kill democracy. Kayleigh McEnany, the question is, will their successes or will their attempts be successful? And do you deem RFK Jr. as big of a threat to them as they deem him to them?
No doubt about it. And RFK Jr. became the biggest threat to Joe Biden yesterday. Look, I had taken us through polling that shows RFK can take from both parties, can take from both candidates. I brought up recently the CNN poll in Michigan. It shows Trump loses 2 points with RFK in. But then you go to Pennsylvania, Trump gains 2 points. Well, Paul Begala, the Democrat strategist, wrote this about yesterday. RFK Jr.'s VP pick is a missile aimed at Biden. He went on to say RFK Jr. has ended the debate as to who RFK hurts because the selection he has made for VP, she is a tried and true Democrat. She's donated to Democratic causes. I think it is fair to describe her as progressive. That is permission for anyone unhappy with Joe Biden to come on and vote for that ticket.
See, you didn't even have to. This is the thing. They were worried that Marianne and Dean Phillips were going to be the issue. And I said I've been saying this from day one when RFK Jr. announced his campaign, that it is a mistake for Joe Biden and Donald Trump to pretend like RFK was not a threat. I don't think Joe Biden expected RFK Jr. to stay in this race as long as he did. I don't think he expected him to build up momentum, especially after some of his cringe, flip-flopping, etc. But he's continuing to build momentum. And now he announced his VP pick, and it's someone that was friendly with the Democratic Party. So now they're like, oh crap, we actually do have a problem. And none of these people were attacking it. I said this before. I'm like, why none of these candidates are coming after RFK Jr. knowing he's polling the way that he is? But now they actually see him as a legitimate threat. So behind the scenes, people are kind of scurrying, trying to figure out, what do we do? Because this is someone that could actually affect Joe Biden. And it actually is. I'm going to show you the most recent poll. And it's going to show you who RFK Jr. is now pulling more support from. Because before I told you he was pulling support from Trump, pulling support from Biden, a little bit of both. But since this announcement of the VP pick, things have changed.
The challenge for RFK is this. Can he get on ballots? Politico reported earlier, actually it was CBS that reported, in Nevada, he's collected 15,000 signatures, but there's a nuanced rule. Oh, you have to have named your VP candidate. Well, he just did that yesterday. So officially, he's only on the ballot in Utah. If he can get out of the ballot, he's a threat to Joe Biden. And last point, just Trump tweeted out, I love that RFK is running. That was yesterday. So there you go. There you go, Harris.
All right. Now let's take a look at the poll, because I'm going to show you how things have changed over time. The Hill actually put this poll out. This was released today. The current numbers as it stands right now between Biden, Trump, and RFK in the polls. Trump has a 2.3% lead based on 106 polls. So this is the average of all those polls there. Take a look at this, folks. Again, you got to remember, this is the average of those polls. So when they combine all of them, we're looking at 9.5% for RFK Jr. That's a lot for someone running as an independent. I want people to understand that. That's a lot. He's over the 5%, right? We have Donald Trump at 41.5%, Joe Biden at 39.2%. As you can see, if we look at the map, let's get their faces out the way. We'll just hover over here. And I want to pull up so you can see the date. March 27th, this was after his announcement. RFK Jr. 9.5%. So you can see that's the most recent amount there. But as you can see, looking at the numbers, he's now pulling more support from Joe Biden. So now some of the Biden supporters have dropped off and either are going towards RFK Jr. or they've dropped off completely, right? And you can see how the numbers have changed over time. Now, when we go back to September, he was at 19% on average. His numbers have gone up and down, just like Biden and Trump, up and down and up and down. And you can see how it's just kind of changed over time. But it does appear like he seems to be affecting Biden more than Donald Trump. I don't know why this changed on me, but he seems to be affecting Biden more than he's affecting Donald Trump now. And then these are the 106 polls. I'm not going to go through all of these because we'll be here all night. It is what it is, right? But these are all the different polls. The Economist poll shows him at 3%, Harris Forbes 12%, and then these dates go back a little bit, a couple days ago. Fox News poll 12%, Quinnipiac 13%, and it goes on and on and on. But you see Trump is gaining points as we go along, and Joe Biden is not. That's what you have to pay attention to. This number on the side that says +1 Trump or whatever, notice you're not seeing that for Biden, not until March 16th to March 19th, it was +1 for Joe Biden. But as we move closer towards the end of this month, notice you don't see any more pluses for Joe Biden. So the Democratic Party, the Biden administration, yeah, they're freaking out. I told people not to sleep on this dude. I told you, I said, look, he's not my candidate, but I still don't think you should pretend like he's not in this race. especially when he was polling like double digits. So they're in panic mode. Now, for the people who like Tulsi and are mad because he didn't pick Tulsi, I don't know why he didn't pick Tulsi. I would actually imagine that his polling probably would be higher if he had picked Tulsi, right? But for whatever reason, that didn't happen. So I don't know. But some people hopped off the RFK train after that. They were like, oh, hell no. He picked this woman instead of Tulsi. I'm out. But yeah, I was surprised he didn't go with her. It seemed like that was the more obvious choice. Thank you, Monster. Sabrina, you are a wonderful commentator. I am impressed. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Or Manster, sorry, not Monster. Ashura says RFK Jr. chose Google, an oligarch company. Sabby says it's a bad pick, just trying to get the youth vote. Shalon, thank you so much. If people were to write in Cornel West, even if he's not on the ballot, would those votes count? Genuinely curious. Well, it should. It should, but I don't know if let's choose my words carefully. In a real democracy, it should. It should count just as much as those uncommitted votes counted, right? People who wrote in like uncommitted or whatever. It should, but you know how the system works. Lance says libertarians should have picked Dave Smith. You know, I don't know if like Dave Smith even wanted to run, but that would have been a big ticket for them, I think. Frank says Tulsi Gabbard is detached from reality. Robert says Nicole's rags to gold digger story. Here we go. Oh, you guys are brutal. Shout out to Cooper for gifting 5 Sabby Sabs memberships. Thanks so much, Cooper. B says he's definitely installing her as VP because she's young and rich, period. And thank you for this as well, Cooper. Does Nicole condemn genocide? They didn't get into that conversation. Good question, though, Cooper. Good question. Greg Bruce says, I forgot Tulsi was a thing. You guys are brutal tonight. Brutal. All right. Speaking of being more brutal, we're going to get into this story with Piers Morgan and Ben Shapiro. Yikes. So you have to keep in mind, I believe this is the first interview that Ben Shapiro has done where he is going to be questioned about Candace Owens firing. So just buckle up your seatbelt for this one. First and foremost, there's a discussion here about what should happen in reference to Gaza. I do want to touch on this piece, and then we'll transition into the conversation about Candace. I don't know about you, but Ben Shapiro does appear, in my opinion, to be a bit nervous in this interview, not as confident as he usually comes across. Listen to this.
Saying there.
Do you feel comfortable, but we've talked about this war a lot. Do you feel comfortable about a full assault on Rafah if 1.5 million people remain in that vicinity, including majority women and children? Because it would obviously be, in that instance, devastating in terms of civilian casualties and would pour even more pressure on Israel and lose them even more support. I mean, do you think this is the right strategy?
Well, I think that Israel is pretty united in its belief that it is. And Israel, I think, is best positioned to adjudicate its own interests when it comes to things like you're talking about, whether it's international support or the future of the Gaza Strip.
So here's the first problem. Piers didn't ask him whether or not Israel thought it was the right strategy. Piers is asking him, does he think it is the right strategy? So just pay attention to that.
Understanding is from all of the public discussions that have been happening that there's significant discussion about how to try to move civilians out of the way. One of the big problems has been that Egypt won't open the gate, even temporarily, to allow enough civilians outside of Rafah so that Israel can perform operations inside of Rafah. Apparently, there are 4 Hamas battalions that are currently located inside of Rafah. I'm sure that if the United States or the...
Pause. So first of all, Ben Shapiro has a tendency to talk really fast so that... It sounds like he knows what he's talking about. Like, I'm going to speak really fast, so you're not going to really pay attention to what he's saying, or maybe you won't be able to keep up with what he's saying. But I'm paying attention to what he's saying. First of all, it is not Egypt's responsibility to take in anyone. I want to be very clear. Egypt didn't start this conflict. This conflict has been escalated by Israel and the United States. The U.S. government has been providing the weapons. Israel has been committing the assault on the Palestinian people in Gaza. Egypt had nothing to do with this. It is not on Egypt to bear responsibility here. This is a horrible talking point, and I want us to learn how to push back on this, because it's just no. And he speaks so quickly. So even if Piers was going to try to interrupt, it's like, whoa, where do I even interject here? No, this is not on Egypt. And I'm tired of people like Ben Shapiro saying this and other people saying this as well. He's not alone. Ron DeSantis has made this comment. Republicans and Democrats have made this comment, by the way. So this is bipartisan, this view. You do not get to excuse Israel's assault on the Palestinian people because Egypt won't let the Palestinian people come in. That is another Zionist talking point.
International community could offer Israel some sort of Harry Potter spell to disappear all of the Hamas terrorists inside Rafah. I'm sure Israel would take it. The last thing Israel wants to do is maximize civilian casualties. What's been perfectly obvious is that Hamas has precisely the opposite view. They would love to maximize civilian casualties because the increasing civilian death toll, as you've pointed out, has been the single factor that's been leading to increased pressure on Israel to leave Hamas alone.
No, Ben is not strong here. I don't know what happened before this interview. I don't agree with most things that Ben Shapiro agrees with. But in this particular discussion, he does come across a bit nervous to me. Different than before. You guys have seen him in debates before. This isn't even really a debate at this point. But he does not seem confident with what he is saying. Israel is not trying to prevent civilian casualties at any point. When you have IDF soldiers that are just shooting at civilians point blank, women that are trying to leave the church, to leave a mosque, that is not trying to protect civilian casualties. Ben Shapiro knows this. He knows what Israel is doing is wrong. But see, this type of rhetoric, the Zionist rhetoric that people like Ben Shapiro grew up, these people are indoctrined. They grow up believing this way, that the land belongs to them and no one else, that everything should be first when it comes to Israel, Israel first, that the Israelis have a right to kick the Palestinian people out of their homes in the West Bank. He grew up believing this way. And so Ben Shapiro, he has to actually, and I know people don't understand this term, but he has to actually decolonize his mind. And that's not easy to do, especially when you've been believing this. You were taught this. It's ingrained in you. It's not easy to do. Let's go on.
What do you make of Biden really turning on Netanyahu? I mean, this decision not to veto this resolution is the latest escalation, really, in the American administration under Biden reining back its support of Israel. How significant is that? And what do you think about Biden doing this?
I mean, obviously, I think that he's morally wrong to abstain from a resolution that seems to disconnect the hostage situation from the ceasefire. All of the versions the United States had been pushing prior suggested that in order for a ceasefire to be called for or attained, there had to be a release of the hostages. This particular version of the UN resolution sort of separates off the two issues, doesn't mention Hamas, doesn't mention October 7th. That's the point of contention with regard to the UN Security Council resolution the United States abstained from. As far as the sort of increased pressure.
I'm sorry. Again, he's off his game here. We covered the ceasefire resolution. We covered this on the show. It absolutely was asking for the release of the hostages. That's why I said Ben is off his game, like seriously, in this discussion.
That Biden or Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader here, have been putting on the Netanyahu administration. Frankly, I think it's political dishonesty. I think that there are a lot of members of the Democratic Party who are very critical of Israel's government full scale. They're trying to put it on Netanyahu because they realize that a lot of the sort of liberal Jewish base in the United States that votes Democrat supports Israel, but also doesn't like Netanyahu very much. but they're ignoring the central reality in Israel, which is that there is full-scale public support for going into Rafah from right, left, and center. The current government of the state of Israel is a war cabinet, including the chief rival to Benjamin Netanyahu, Benny Gantz, who just visited the United States, and in fact was treated to much of the same language by the Biden administration. So to suggest that it's sort of Netanyahu's own political domestic manipulations leading to his desire to go into Rafah, Netanyahu is in fact correct when he suggests that there is broad public support for going into Rafah. And in fact, if the current war cabinet does not go into Rafah, there's a very solid chance that the government of Israel falls in their new elections.
If the government of Israel falls, it's its own fault. It's its own fault. First of all, let's go ahead and push back on something here. The majority of Democrat politicians in D.C. support Israel. Ben is lying. He's wrong here again. The majority of them support Israel. The majority of them vote for the legislation in favor of that legislation to send arms to Israel. So when he's talking about the Democrat politicians and he's like, well, yeah, they're against. No. There is a difference between criticizing Netanyahu and sending arms to Israel. And I've said this before. Netanyahu is the easy target. So if you can criticize him all you want, but if you're still sending him weapons, then your criticism doesn't have any weight. They still back Israel. They still support Israel. And so does the Republican Party. Both parties support the state of Israel. You cannot make this a partisan issue, Ben Shapiro. The ultimate problem is Zionism, but he don't want to touch that.
That is true about the support, definitely, but it's also true that a majority of people in Israel want to get rid of Netanyahu. So this is a support for...
But not during the actual conflict, right? What the polls show is that Israelis would love to have another election, but not right at the moment, meaning that they've had 5 elections in 4 years. It's always sort of weird when people talk about Israel needs a new election. They have more new elections than Taylor Swift has outfit changes during one of her concerts. It's not as...
Why is it weird that people are talking about Israel having another or more election or want them to have an election when the United States government has done this with other countries all over the world? When the United States government, you see, I'm going to show you the difference. The United States government has installed leaders in countries like Haiti. They've overthrown leaders. And it was totally fine because those are black and brown countries. It's fine when they intervene in Iraq. It's fine when they intervene in Haiti. It's fine when they intervene in Syria. It's fine when they intervene in Afghanistan. It's only problematic when it's Israel.
So there's a lack of elections. I do find it sort of strange that there's always a call for new elections in Israel, which again has many, many elections. I have yet to hear for a call for elections in, say, the West Bank or Gaza Strip, where there has not been an election since 2005. And there's a reason for that. And the reason for that is because everybody understands if there were an election in the Gaza Strip or West Bank, Hamas would actually win.
What I don't understand about Israel's strategy is how they perceive actual victory. Yes, you can take out the 30 to 35,000 Hamas terrorists. Yeah, maybe they can do that. And maybe in the process of that, they kill tens of thousands more civilians and have to deal with the contention that will cause worldwide. And maybe Israelis don't care about that part as long as they get rid of Hamas. So let's get to an end game where Hamas has gone. Why does leveling Gaza and killing so many civilians, why would that give anyone in Israel any kind of comfort that would kill off the ideology that fueled Hamas, that it wouldn't actually just lead to an increase in that ideology, more hatred towards Israelis, more hatred towards Jewish people? I've never quite understood what the end game looks like here for Israel that makes Israel more secure.
In other words, Piers Morgan is asking, what is the end game? When all this is said and done, what is the end game?
Well, I mean, the end game presumably is security, not a sort of dynamic ideological scoring among a population that right now overwhelmingly supports the October 7th attacks, and prior to October 7th, overwhelmingly supported terror attacks against the state of Israel. And
pause. So he said the end game is security. Israel has the Iron Dome. Gaza doesn't have an Iron Dome. Israel has a military. Gaza does not have a military. Israel gets $3.8 billion from the United States every year. Boston, okay, my city here, Boston, sends $10 million to Israel, but we got people out here on the street. You can't fund the schools that are falling apart, but you can give $10 million to Israel. So when it comes to security, the people who are not secure are the Palestinians in Gaza and the Palestinians in the West Bank. The Palestinians being dragged out of their homes in the West Bank have no security. That's why this is continuing to happen. The Palestinians in Gaza have no security. How do you think Hamas was created? How do you think a Hamas comes about? When you oppress people and you occupy people and you treat them in such a way, what do you think happens? And then you have to look at what international law says. International law says that occupied people have a right to resist. Again, this is another Zionist talking point. Make themselves seem like they are the ultimate victim when they have more resources, they have better weapons, they have better technology, they all have health care, they control the resources, but they make themselves seem like they're the ultimate victim.
Overwhelmingly supported the destruction of the state of Israel. The sort of idea that more conciliation from Israel was bringing about peaceful conditions with the Palestinian Authority or with Hamas has been obviously proved false by the fact that Israel literally withdrew all IDF forces from the Gaza Strip in 2005. Hamas took control. They spent the last 20 years turning it into.
That's a lie. He's being disingenuous. He's not telling you that Israel still goes in and mows the lawn. They withdrew IDF troops in 2005. They have continued to go in there and to mow the lawn. And Ben is leaving that out on purpose.
A giant terror base. From the Israeli perspective, my assumption is that what they are figuring is degrade Hamas's military capacity such that they cannot be an offensive threat to the state of Israel, and then try to enact some sort of military control of the area sufficient to prevent any future threat from arising from that area. I'm sure that Israel would love to hand the area over to Egypt. Egypt says no. Egypt doesn't want any part of it.
This is not Egypt's responsibility. So you see how he's trying to put the blame on another country that had nothing to do with this in order to excuse the IDF's actions.
Would love to hand it over to Jordan. Jordan says no. Jordan doesn't want any part of it. Israel's tried to hand it over to the Saudis, to the UAE, to the United States, to literally anyone. No one wants to run that area specifically because the population is already quite radicalized and was radicalized before October 7th. And so
no, that is not why they don't want to run that area. First of all, this assumption that all Muslim people have the same culture and you should just take them in because you're Muslim and they're Muslim too, that's ignorance. That's ignorance. And two, when you talk about them not wanting to have ownership over in the countries that you mentioned, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, these are countries that are aligned with the United States government. Saudi Arabia is kind of stepping, has actually one foot out the door because they're also part, the BRICS as well. But still, these are countries that are aligned with the U.S. government. I mean, come on. Joe Biden just met with the Princess of Jordan. So why would you expect them to get involved here? And then three, again, it is not their responsibility to fix the colonization, the occupation, and the oppression that Israel caused. That is not their responsibility. And these countries don't always have the resources and the money to handle that as well. Instead of blaming the oppressor, Ben Shapiro was blaming the neighboring countries that had nothing to do with this.
What you're probably going to end up with, and I said this, I think, the first time I appeared on the show, which was shortly after October 7th in this context, what you're probably going to end up with is some form of joint military rule in the Gaza Strip in which Israel has the intelligence capacity to go in and conduct raids in terror hotbeds the same way that they do right now, for example, in the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, places like Jenin, places like Nablus. The IDF is constantly attempting to go in and root out terror cells in these particular areas. One of the big flaws that led to October 7th was the fact that Israel had no forces on the ground and no actual intelligence capability inside the Gaza Strip.
Oh, all of a sudden on that day, they just didn't have anything. I told you that was always weird to me, especially when information was released that they actually had read the plans about this attack that was going to happen over a year ago, but they chose not to entertain it because they felt that it was, I guess, adventurous, so to speak. They didn't think that this could actually be accomplished. But Ben Shapiro is not on his A game there. At this point, you can't. Joe Rogan's not even defending it anymore. Joe Rogan's not even defending Israel anymore. You lost the plot, Ben, and you also lost the plot in reference to the Candace situation. So Piers Morgan went there.
One of the consequences of this war has been a lot of very high passions on both sides, a lot of angry disagreements. You and your company have been at the center of a very high-profile one at the moment with Candace Owens, who's now left Daily Wire. Was she fired, or did she leave of her own volition?
I'm not going to speak to this topic, Piers.
I guess this has been the week of I'm not going to speak to that topic. Marianne Williamson said this to Bree. Ben Shapiro is saying this to Piers Morgan. But kudos to Piers for not giving up. I will give him credit for this because I think some people would just back down here. But Piers continues to push. You don't want to speak about it, Ben. Why? Why don't you want to speak about it? Because Ben wants to make sure that he keeps his spot at the Daily Wire, right? Ben don't want to comment about it. Ben had his hands involved in this. I'm going to show you how he did. Ben had his hands involved in this, but Ben does not want to talk about it, okay? He want to throw stones and hide his damn hand, all right? You ain't got nothing to say, Ben. Come clean, Ben.
At all?
At all.
You can't give me any insight into why she departed?
No hints, no nothing. I'm not going to speak to this.
Can I ask why?
I mean, you can ask.
No, I'm not. Can I ask why you don't want to say anything?
What a coward. What a coward. How much they paying you, Ben? How much is the Daily Wire paying you to keep your mouth shut? Woo, buddy. Candace Owens. This the person you defended, man. The number of times you defended Ben Shapiro, you see how they do you?
Again, you can ask.
I'm only curious because I know what a staunch defender of free speech you are, and it would surprise me if it had been someone's opinions that would make you want to part company with them, however contentious.
I mean, suffice it to say, the only thing I will say is what I've said all along with regard to Candace or with regard to any of our other hosts. I am not in hiring and firing position with the Daily Wire. I'm a co-founder of the Daily Wire. I'm a co-owner of the Daily Wire. I'm not actually in management. Jeremy Boring and Caleb Robinson are in management positions with regard to.
Ben is letting you know. Let me tell you who the managers are. Okay. I am not the manager. So it's interesting that Piers Morgan brought up, he said, I know how passionate you are about free speech. Was he though? Because I don't really believe he was really passionate about free speech. I felt that he was passionate about the type of speech that he wanted to be able to say and not receive pushback on. Ben Shapiro just released a song with this dude with dreads and whatever, braids in his hair, right? And this guy, and they're singing, I don't care if I offend you. But it's okay for Ben Shapiro to say that to everyone else, but it's not okay for you to offend Ben. Because when it comes to Israel, all of a sudden, Ben's like, no, you can't say these things. You cannot criticize Zionism. You cannot criticize the state of Israel. And not only that, but you have to put Israel first. And we'll get to that in just a second. You have to put Israel first. So it's okay for him to offend you, but it's not okay for you to offend him. So I would argue they were never really pro-free speech. They were pro-speech for the type of rhetoric that they approved of. But they weren't free speech absolutists. Because like I said, when it comes to Israel, things changed. Listen to this.
To Candace or anyone else. And as far as the free speech situation, what I will...
Let me go back a little bit. Because this is just very telling. I think I was right there. Yeah.
Say is what I've said all along with regard to Candace or with regard to any of our other hosts. I am not in hiring and firing position with the Daily Wire. I'm a co-founder of the Daily Wire. I'm a co-owner of the Daily Wire. I'm not actually in management. Jeremy Boring and Caleb Robinson are in management positions with regard to Candace or anyone else. And as far as the free speech situation, what I will say is that no company has the obligation to literally pay anyone. The Daily Wire is a publisher. It is not a platform.
So here is Ben Shapiro defending the employer instead of the employee. Defending the company instead of the worker. They're not obligated to pay you. That's besides the point. I thought the Daily Wire was created so that people could have free speech, so that people could say what they wanted to say on that platform. That was the whole purpose of it, from what I understood in the very beginning. But they're hypocritical about it. It's the same thing I told you about the cancel culture. I told you cancel culture is on both sides, Republican Party and the Democratic Party. Both parties do cancel culture, just about different issues. It's not a good look for the Daily Wire, I'm telling you.
I've never called for Candace or anyone else for that matter to be banned from YouTube, to be banned from X, to be banned from any platform. That's a different story, obviously, when it comes to any publisher. Any publisher gets to make decisions about what it wishes to purvey and not.
I mean, I'm just not going to labor this, but one more point I would make is it's been reported extensively that the reason for her departure was because her comments have been perceived by people at the Daily Wire as anti-Semitic.
Again, I'm not going to comment on this, Piers.
Okay.
So you guys see that? All of a sudden now you have nothing to say. Well, I'm going to comment on it because there was leaked information that was released more about Candace Owens firing. Check this out. Bombshell leak. Candace Owens was fired for saying Christ is king. 4 Daily Wire employees, all Christians, have approached me. Their identities will remain anonymous for safety reasons. And leaked information about an impromptu town hall that Jeremy Boring, CEO of Daily Wire, hosted on the day of Candace's firing. Jeremy Boring sent an email to all Daily Wire employees inviting them to an impromptu town hall in Candace Owens' studio. The town hall was led by Boring, the Andrew Clavin repeating many of the corporate talking points on his show the next day. 4 employees told me that the town hall attempted to brainwash the employees present into believing that Candace was, in fact, an anti-Semite. And they had the nerve to do this in her studio. They view it as an extreme form of damage control to scare and prevent employees from speaking out against Owens' firing later that day. The feeling was that they didn't just want her gone. They wanted everyone to hate her like Ben does. It was straight up propaganda. These subjects were brought up during the town hall. Candace's repeated use of Christ as king was deemed anti-Semitic, dating back to November when a meeting when Ben Shapiro was leaked. In the meeting, he badmouthed Owens for not being overtly pro-Israel. So you see how they all just got together and had this little private meeting about her? And the number of times that Candace defended her comrades at the Daily Wire, you see how they can all get together and gang up on you? A clip of Nick Fuentes chanting Christ is king was played. The expression made Shapiro particularly angry, and since Fuentes is deemed an anti-Semite by the ADL, it was used to suggest Owens was an anti-Semite by association. A clip from Owens on Fresh and Fit was played where a ka-ching sound effect was heard in the background. This was an attempt to associate her with the stereotype that Jews love money. The employees also told me that Ben had been bitter in his attitude towards Candace as her show was outperforming Ben's and was much better received. Oh, well, what do you know? Ben was a tad bit jealous. Look, guys, sometimes jealousy is afoot. Like that's wild. This is crazy. Now remember, they all supposed to be one network, right? They're all supposed to be working together, but everybody has their individual shows. Shouldn't they be cheering each other on? Shouldn't they be, happy for each other? I don't know. Some employees are planning a lawsuit against the Daily Wire, feeling intimidated and threatened by the meeting, and also because of what they believe is an attack on Christianity at the company. But I thought they were supposed to be pro-Christian though, right? I thought that was the whole, it's not like they didn't know who Candace was when they decided to have her be a part of the team. It's not like she hid that she was a Christian. She talked about this often. She talked about God. So why? I thought that was the whole point. You're supposed to be for that though. No, they wanted her to be for Israel. They felt the phrase Christ is king was seriously deemed to be anti-Semitic by Boring, Clavin, and Ben. Which is why Ben did not want to answer that question from Piers Morgan when he said, do you think her statements have been anti-Semitic? I'm not going to go there, Piers. That's okay. We went there, Ben. It was Candace's repeated use of the phrase, along with her not being overtly pro-Israel, that ultimately led to her firing. You guys see the danger of Zionism now? After hearing this, no Christian or anyone with genuine morals should have a Daily Wire subscription or support the company in any way, shape, or form. It is clear that Christianity is under attack at the Daily Wire, with Christian employees feeling so intimidated that they are actually consulting their lawyers. That is totally unacceptable and must not be supported. Candace Owens did nothing wrong. So apparently the Daily Wire has a problem with Christianity when I would assume the majority of the audience, let's go with half. Let's say at least half of the audience are Christian. What is this? It's giving me cult-like vibes, I feel like is this a Waco? Like, what is this? You're not overtly pro-Israel. You must go. I can't. And look, I don't even agree. Like, me and Candace Owens do not agree on many things, right? But I think we agree on censorship. I think we agree on this. This is ridiculous. Is this the future? Is this where we're headed now? Is this where we're headed now? So now all of a sudden, if you're Christian and you got to be overtly Israel or you're a problem, this is ridiculous. This is the United States of America. People have freedom of religion here. You have the option to practice Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, like whatever you want. So this is, I hear you, Sharon. This is going too far. This is ridiculous. So no. And we have a separation of church and state in this country. Like is this legal? Because if they have evidence of this, those employees that came forward, is this legal? Is it legal to fire someone because of their religion? Because they don't support the religion that you want them to support? I don't think that's legal. I should reach out to one of my lawyer friends. I'm serious. Like, I don't know where to go there. But if they actually have documentation that that was the case and those things were said in that discussion, this is very problematic. No. Sabby is not trying to have that. That's ridiculous. It's crazy. I don't care. Let people practice whatever religion they want to practice. And that should not interfere with your job. Your job is your job. Your religion is your religion. Travers says it's legal in Israel. Like, what is happening in this country? This is the United States of America. This is not the United States of Israel. Ay. Let me go to some of the comments here. That's wild, son. That's wild. Shout out to Ravina for gifting 5 Sabby memberships. Let's give Ravina a big whoop whoop. Thank you, Shalon. One of the protesters in NYC had a sign that said, land you have to kill for is not your land. And that's really the only argument. Hard stop. I feel you. Thank you, Aspen Fallen. Israel doesn't want to maximize civilian casualties. Literally spit out my drink with laughter. Good one, Ben. We have eyes and aren't dumb. Thank you, Bougie. God's chosen victims. Look, man, religion is a belief. Like, this is getting wild. Thank you, Dwight. The Pentagon has been talking about funding a peacekeeping force per the news. Interesting. Hossein. Free speech only for pro-Israel people. Wake up, U.S. Wake up. U.S. isn't a country anymore. It's a puppet state. Things are getting wild, man. I don't know, man. Thank you, David. Cults have formed through ideology so much lately, Sabby. I've seen it firsthand with many topics that become hard lines. It's why we're so divided. Thank you, Roger. She was victimized by them. She still can't come to the barbecue. She made her bed with them for the money. She must sleep in the bed she made. I got to tell you, man, like, Candace, you see how they could all get together and just people will turn. I'm telling you guys, people will turn on you like that. Ay. We're going to end with a little bit of fun. And I think I'm going to do a little short call in, Eric. Is that okay? All right. But we're going to end with some fun. Okay. I want to ask you guys a question because I really do think this woman here really didn't think she did anything wrong. And I just want to hear your take on this. I haven't done online dating in years. Obviously, I'm married. But I want you to hear what this person says. And a lot of people are laughing about this online. But tell me what you think. Do you think that she misled the person she went on the date with? So listen to this. We're going to have a little bit of fun. First date went wrong. When she showed her picture, I kind of understood. Listen to what she says. It's kind of funny, but here.
Guys, I just finished my date. And I am so embarrassed. I'm not gonna cry in here. I'm not gonna cry. I'm sorry, guys. I just had to clean myself up a little bit. He came, and so the whole thing is we went to this restaurant he wanted to go to, and it was a little too expensive, but I don't know. I asked my sister for money, so we went. I had this dress on, and I changed because I had this dress on and everything. And I had my hair out. Like, you know, guys, I cut it, but it wasn't like this. I had it parted a little bit. And so I went in, and he was like looking around like, oh, like he was looking for somebody else. And I was like, okay. I'm like, hey, I'm Tia. And then he was like, Tia? I'm like, yeah, it's for me, from BLK. And then he was like looking confused, and he told me to sit down. So I sat down. I smiled, and he didn't smile back at me. And then he was like, I don't look like my pictures.
Okay, so that's apparently one of the pictures, I guess, that she has on her dating profile. So guys in the chat, tell me, do you think she looks like her picture? It's the same person. So I don't know, well, let me finish this and we'll show you what else she said.
I do look like my pictures. I don't Photoshop anything. I tell everything how it is. I'm going to insert at the end of the video the picture I put in. And he was like, just being so quiet through meal and all that. He didn't even want to pay. I said, hey, I didn't bring my money with me. And then he eventually paid. And then now he sent me a request to pay for the food. And that's not, I just don't understand. Why are men like this? Men are evil.
So I mean, she went on to say, so listen to this, because she did talk about the profile, because I really do think she genuinely doesn't understand what she doesn't see there as an issue at all. Like with her pic, she's like, I didn't lie about who I was. So listen to this. Like, I don't know. Like, I think she was genuinely hurt, but her picture looked a little, listen to this.
Hey guys, this is my profile on BLK. As you can see, it says my name, my age, everything. That's my first picture. I said something casual. So yeah, I'm scrolling down. See, it says my description. I said I'm a chubby black girl. I'm a simple anime, horror movies, old R&B tracks. Let me be in charge of the aux cord. And I also.
Okay, she did say, who said she bigger? DJ said that's her, but she is bigger. So she did say in her profile that she said she is a chubby black girl. Okay.
Said if you live with your mom, baby moms or moms, please have your own place. I don't think that's so much to ask, and I'm not judgy, but it's a no for me. And please no D pics. Don't like that. Okay. And I love this question. My best excuse for being late is I'm never late. And I added a little giggle at the end to be like, really cute and stuff. And yeah, that was my second picture, guys. I said I'm looking for a best friend. My other picture, I'm easy to talk to. And then non-sexual turn-ons is when a man drives. And
she said non-sexual turn-on is when a man drives.
Yeah, and I put here what I like. And I know I said I smoke and drink. I don't smoke and drink at all. I literally don't. I just put it to sound cool.
Okay, so guys, like she really, I guess she, took this pretty hard, and she was convinced that her pictures, she didn't portray anything. You guys are saying Miss says her pics got filters for real. Oh, okay. So are people using filters on their pictures? Is that what Mastermind said? Is that her sister? Be Easy said you have to send full body pics. Notori says if she went on that date like she looked in the car, I would have left her ass too. She tried. I don't know. Like I thought she did. She looked a little different in the picture. Famo goes, she looks wild. Biden Strami said she does kind of look like her pictures, in my opinion. Gala says yes. Bad Cookie says no. Whoever says, I think she just worked harder on her makeup for those pictures. The Oracle says that was not her. Her lower face is altogether different. Interesting. Bad Cookies, yeah, he was catfished. Kian, her pic don't look like her. Joe said 20 years ago. I love you, Joe. Roger said, what year was the picture taken, Sabby? She didn't say. Kaladin said, that is catfishing in my opinion. And Biden Strami said, she would look like her pic if she try. You can't try in your pictures, then show up in sweats without makeup. Got to keep that same energy. Feel bad for her. Yeah, because like she really took it. She took it hard, and she's just like, what did I mislead you about? So I really think she really doesn't know. I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. Okay, I think we are going to do a little call in. So I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be back. And
we can talk about it in call in.
Yeah, we can talk about this in call in, guys.
on the supposedly short call-in. Yeah, we'll see how that one goes. But yeah, we're going to use call-in while we can get it, because supposedly call-in's end day is April 3rd. But don't worry, we'll feel something else. Yeah, Bad Cookie's a short call-in. And yeah, Kill Your Egregores is ready for it. Call in, yeah. And let's see, man with long last name says, I kind of don't care if men get catfish, they can just leave. Yeah, it kind of depends on the guys, some guys do all right and it's no big deal, but there's some guys you'd feel kind of feel sorry for if they get that kind of treatment. But yeah, that's an interesting one. Oh, here we go. David says the call-in catfish edition. All right. Yeah. So Sabby will be setting up the call-in room, and then she'll be pinging it to the. Not pinging it. She'll be posting it to the top of the chat, and you can do call-in on your browser or on your smartphone. While you can, and then yeah, we're gonna figure something out, something else out, like we'll do going forward. But yeah, you can talk about this. You can talk about our other stories tonight. We got like the RFK pick, the Obama Clinton event, the Ice Cube, and the basketball player, and then of course old little Ben Shapiro there, who Corey and I were here laughing at old Ben there saying, I'm just a co-owner, I don't have anything to do about personnel decisions, and so yeah, I'm certainly a bit jealous there. Let's see. So yeah, one thing I wanted to hit was that before we do, and this is where we give Sabrina a little break before we transfer over to the call-in, and then she'll pop back in, and then we'll take the game over there. But I think that there's a lot of focus now, rightly so, on Israel and AIPAC in terms of who controls the government, and where the real power is. And I do want to I mean, it's certainly something that can be talked about, or that should be talked about, but I do think that we also need to think bigger, like that Israel and AIPAC, they are very effective lobbyists, and they know how to play that game, but they're not the only ones. I mean, they weren't the ones driving the Ukraine war. And, I think if we're really going to have, real change, or, figuring out what is the real change that we need to be demanding, we need to recognize that, it's not about just one lobby or one group. It's about the system, and our system is deeply corrupt, and everything runs by the money. And so it's, in order to fix these things, you have to have these basic demands as far as, cutting those puppet strings, cutting those money strings. And so, the first thing is always educating it. So I'd say, MCDS, and this is kind of the framework that, I'd love to see, people really just using this. There's always bring it back to the money, because these things are always about the money. Every bomb that's dropped in Palestine, every weapon system that went over to Ukraine, these whole things, it's all about the money. War and war tensions are profitable, very profitable for that whole military industrial complex. And the MIC and the weapons contractors and the big corporations in general are extensions of that billionaire class, that top 0.1% that really run things. So that needs to be recognized. They use their money and their power to get their way, and that's the corruption, and that always needs to be called out. And when when Jill Stein was on JB Fawn's show recently, I was really happy to hear her use the word corruption several times in talking about our corrupt system. And she also talked about demands, which is the next letter in the MCDS, the D. And so we, as the 99%, need to demand that essentially the government really represents us. So you get to the D, and when you get to that, then you get to the S, the solutions. And if you're going to fix these things, then you got to fix the money. And there are ways to do that. So that's why I always like to bring it back to MCDS.
All right.
So, money, corruption, demand, solutions.
All right.
And Colin. Oh, there's Corey putting it in the chat.
All right.
Oh, he's doing the lightning bolt.
Yeah. We
right,
can talk.
Colin time. We'll see you in there.
Yeah, we can talk about it on Call In, guys. This is episode 161. That link is pinned to the top of the chat, so we can go ahead and head on over there. I'll be back again live tomorrow night, and don't miss Sunday's show. Kim Iverson is going to be here. Should be a good discussion. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.